We have Anthony and Hamilton on the line, so we have a forum, so we can get started. Kate Bauer, I'm sharing this thing, as you guys all know, because I'm a girl who can't say no. Tonight's transportation, which is going to be fun. And I think part of the reason people aren't here is because of transportation issues. For those of you who came from really South County. Couple of business items. If I can do this and not screw it up. Is it up and down as opposed to left and right?
Yeah,
Nothing's happening.
there, it's just good.
Have to use that?
Yeah, just good.
Yeah.
Try the rest. So I'll try it.
So we have a couple of housekeeping issues before we do too much. One is to say hello. The second is to approve the agenda for the meeting, which you got in the mail, and there were copies on the table. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda for this evening?
I have a question about it, and that is, I know at least one person is coming tonight to listen and maybe speak. Are we reserving some time at the end for that? I didn't see that on here. For public comments? Is that what that is?
Right, that's what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Carla, second, Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Minutes for the meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes from last month?
I was comment that they were quite juicy and quite helpful.
Juicy was a good word. Not the one I would have thought of, but it works. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, Carla. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are carried. Okay, approved. So, I've got just a couple of comments before we get started. Last meeting. Boy, so I can't have my stuff right in front of me. My glasses don't help, and without glasses, I can't see, so. Last meeting, I asked you to think about convergence as we do our work. Where can we get 1 and 1 makes more than 2 as we think about strategies? And I would ask you to continue to keep that in mind as we talk about transportation. To look for opportunities outside of the silo of transportation and think about how transportation affects housing, affects the environment. So, okay. And since that last meeting, and I'm sorry that Nikki's not here yet because she's been part of a small group that has been talking about how we can more effectively get voices into this process that are not present. We have very few young people, young families in our discussions, and we don't have much access into communities of color. Both of those I find problematic as we do our work. And so we've been trying to think about how, while we don't have the opportunity to modify the group, we've been thinking about how we can get the message about what our strategies are out, particularly into the communities of color in South County, and how we can get input from those folks into the strategies that we are developing. And we're going to spend some time in March talking about that. But I'm giving you kind of a heads up. I would like you to think about what ways you know, or what people you know, or what approaches we might be able to use to increase the reach on the preliminary strategies that we come up with, so that before we finalize what we're recommending, we hear other voices and other responses about what might be missing. So please give some thought to that between now and our March meeting. And we are going to carve out, part of that meeting is going to be a recap of the work we've done so far and a chance to adjust. And we want to spend time in this pursuit of thinking about what strategies we can employ to get more voices involved in the process. Any questions about that before we move on? Okay.
I only have one question to the county folks, which is, I'm not sure what you call them, but the one you had at in Edgewater last
The
week.
drop-in sessions?
Drop-in sessions. You had two of those,
Correct.
and you'll probably do some more.
We've had some in summer as well, before the whole process goes.
So you keep count of the, sort of the number of people who come, okay, so how many people do you think you're having?
So
Okay.
our last, we're going to touch base more too later, but over the last drop-in session, we had just over 30 people show up. I have to go back and check the previous. We're doing well. We're doing, for these efforts that we've been able to do, we feel like we're pretty proud of the number of events.
The plan, BK, is at this point to have at least one in April on the summary of what we're doing. And then when we get into zoning, to think about more than one. How many that is, we're not sure, depending on the scope of what the recommendations are. You want to add to that?
Yeah, this is Mike Stringer for those online, I was planning zoning and planning team. So, yeah, we have community outreach efforts, beyond what's happening in this meeting space. And, so with these draft strategies, they're also going online and we're distributing that out to all channels that the county has, like through the, Office of Community Engagement and Constituency Services, their weekly newsletter that goes to approximately 40,000 addresses. We're partnered with our, other sister agencies, like the Partnership for Children and Family, that does a lot of, kind of operates a network called Communities of Hope, working with a lot of organizations that are doing direct service to low incomes, underserved communities, and having them help distribute our information. Before this committee began to meet, we spent last year, also, doing interviews with, community leaders around, Region 9, and we attended community events as well. We've had online surveys as well, so each of those kind of aspects, phases of outreach, we created summaries for. So there's something for that preliminary outreach that happened before this committee sat, and that's on the hub site, the website for this. And similarly, when we have these efforts, like when the vision questionnaire went out and when the strategies for national government went out, we're creating summaries for those. They're getting finalized right now to be shared with you, and they'll also be shared out with the whole public and posted on the website. So you'll be able to see those statistics on number of people who've commented and what their comments were. So you'll see both summary of that and raw.
And for those folks who are in the audience as well as online, we have a couple more than just our committee members. That housing survey is still up until the 20th. Is it the 20th of the month? I
It's
think.
on the slide.
The 20th of February. So if you haven't filled it out, I would encourage you to go and look at it, and I would encourage you to encourage other people to go and look at it so that we get input to the housing strategies that we've come up with so far.
Jane,
Yes,
a question and a comment. What kind of response rates are you getting to these surveys? 50, 60, 100 people?
I believe this one's only been for about a week or so, and I think this morning we got an update that it already has about 50 responses.
Okay, and the environmental one, I think we had over 200, if I recall correctly. And that's just region 9, that's just region 9.
right.
Okay, and the comment is, I think today or yesterday, you guys sent around an image about the survey, and that's really helpful. So we can put it out on social media.
Right.
And then trying to snip it out of other things and getting the image freestanding makes it really easier, so thank you.
Yeah, sending it as a JPEG makes life a whole lot easier than any other way. Kathy, you had a comment.
Yes, Kathy Oliver, I wondered how the March meeting will be structured to do the recap, whether it will be similar to what we've been doing, which kind of puts us in those silos versus maybe having big goals. Like one of the things you brought up, which I thought was great at the first meeting, was that make South County a destination, and what are the ideas around that? Just setting some goals that make us think more broadly, as opposed to just, this is transportation, and this is housing, and this is, so if we could maybe think about how we can restructure that meeting, I think we might be able to think more broadly.
It hasn't been designed yet, but we'll certainly take that into account as we do it. It's a good idea, good observation.
And at the beginning of this meeting, I'm gonna mention something about the vision statement in that conversation we'll have as a group. So I think that can kind of help facilitate that.
Okay.
So now that we've got the JPEG, could we print that out and go the non-social media way, which is go put it around the grocery store, the car wash, and, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have a version that's kind of designed, like, the JPEG version is designed for social media posting, there's a PDF that fits for the printer and looks real nice when you just print it out, yeah.
I have a comment, got me thinking, talking about, trying to get a younger demographic included in this. I hope the county has some, may have to get back to us. I think they started to talk to us about the demographics of age folks in South County, of this part of South County. And looking back at previous small area plan process that I was involved with, I would venture to say that both this time and the last time, you had about the same volume of gray hair.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was the youngest of, on the committee that, at that point, I had two toddlers at the time. And so getting the demographics, knowing that, I don't know who you're dealing with and how many people, there's not very many, like your last time, I'll be, starter homes for people in this area. So the demographics is gonna, relate to that. I know a lot of businesses particularly in the marine trades, are pulling from outside of our area because there are not enough young people to even, that are even going into that field.
So you raised another good point, Bill, that I wanted to mention. And that is some of you have seen the original or the last iteration of the small area plan, which I failed to bring with me. I will bring with me in next meeting. But based on what's happened in the first three regions, it's not gonna look like the one 20 years ago in terms of how it's laid out or in terms of the degree of specificity and detail. So I would encourage you to go to the planning hub for the county and look at the Region 7 draft plan. That's Annapolis, and that's probably the closest to us in terms of some common issues, just to get a sense of how it's being presented. Because I think that will also help, for instance, Kathy, when we think about looking back over the strategies, if you see how the pieces fit together, it's easier to figure out how we're going to get there than what's that amorphous thing at the end of this road. So I would encourage you to do that before the March meeting. Anything else before we move on? So I'm not sure what the next slide is. So. All right, transportation and land use. That's our topic for tonight.
Okay, if I may jump in real quick,
Sure.
we had two awesome professionals here that were with us tonight, Mr. Hawkins and Mr. Lord, Office of Transportation, Mr. Lord, and then in DOT, Mr. Hawkins. So be nice if you're on your own free time, don't beat them up too bad tonight. If you have any questions, the prep process, they're here to kind of help and answer everything.
And remember, Muddy Creek is the state project. However, before we get started, I would like you to take a couple of minutes where you are and make two lists. The first list is to identify what you think are the biggest transportation issues facing the area you are representing on this body. So what are the most, it can be more than one, but what are the most significant transportation issues on the Mayo Peninsula or in Shady Side or in West River or in Edgewater? And once you have made the list of your specific community, make a second list that is region-wide. So while you're dealing with something where you live, what happens when you leave where you live and go to another part of Region 9? What are the issues that you encounter? So I want you to create 2 lists. Take about 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh, I didn't
And pretend you're back in college when you're done, put your pencil down so I know you're finished. Okay. So we're going to do a series of overviews of transportation issues around Region 9. And as we finish one of the areas, as you listen to it, if it's yours, I think Mayo is the first one. So for the Mayo contingent, anything that's on your list that gets covered in the presentation, check it. And at the end, we'll see what's missing that's on your list that didn't get covered. We'll do that for each of the areas in the region, so that we have a chance to kind of merge. Richard, we're back here. So it'll give us a chance to put the pieces together. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric. And he's going to talk with whatever other support he's looking for.
So before we get too far into tonight's big discussion, I wanted to kind of give a brief overview, broad paintbrush stroke essentially, right, of transportation and land use. I think a lot of people don't realize they're connected, and that could potentially result into a lot of mistakes through the planning process and into that nature. But I think here at the county, we're always working to make sure everyone's aware that transportation and land use go hand in hand. I always like to say, you can have the world's greatest destination, but if you have no way to get there, what's the point? And on the other hand, too, you can have the world's greatest infrastructure, but if it's not going anywhere, what's the point, right? So one thing we've kind of seen throughout the United States, generally and broadly speaking, that the construction of roads isn't the focus. The automobile has been king for a very long time. and it still continues to do so today. So when you look around most roads, generally speaking, sidewalk infrastructure, bicycle lanes, micromobility, all that kind of stuff, is secondhand to the automobile at this time. It's important to understand the separation of uses, housing, shopping, workplaces, create and make the driving. That's what creates our issues that we have through traffic today. If you think of different areas throughout Maryland even, or even the country, where in your head and in your mind, just, and this isn't out loud, this is just thinking about, where is transportation done well? And where can it be improved? Think about locally, your backyard, your front street, or Annapolis, or DC, or whatever you may have, right? Think about what would you like to see different? And how would it be better for you and your personal needs? So moving right along, within the county itself, we have a couple different services offered, and specifically the South County, right? So we do have the Edgewater route, the bus service. One thing we wanted to ask you guys today is, how do you guys see the service? How do you guys, what's your opinions of it? Should hours be expanded? The frequency of stops, frequency of timing. What are the important destinations do you see that people would use this route, or could use this route for, if other stops were to be?
How much volume do you have on this route?
What was that?
How much volume, how many people ride?
I would have to pass that over to our transportation folks if we know that answer. Give me a minute, I can try to look up.
Is this the college ride thing that you're talking about?
No, Colorado, we'll talk about that here in a second. Get ahead of me.
Brian, can you describe transportation service that we have?
The Gold Edgewater is fixed route. It runs about every hour. Basically from downtown Annapolis to the mall, and then down Route 2, does a loop through Nader Road and back up Route 2. And that's a fixed route, like once an hour it comes through. And then you can go to the next one if you want. The call and ride is the zonal service where you call ahead, schedule a trip, and it'll take you anywhere in that zone. So you could also, if you're in South County and want to get somewhere else in the county, you can take that to Edgewater and then hop on the route, and it connects you to Annapolis or other services.
Is that a real bus, like a city bus? I've had.
It's like a 12, 14 passenger
Okay.
bus. I don't know if they have the green ones down here yet. They have the green ones. So if you see a green bus, our bus just had the county logo as a white bus, kind of blended in with a lot of like the senior center or senior facilities, nursing homes and stuff that have their kind of, it's bigger than a van, but it's,
Right, not a big city bus.
yeah, not a big city bus. But now some of the newer ones are green and the wrap that have big banner on them, so you can identify them and know what they are. So those are the two services that are offered in this region.
Any estimate of how much use they get?
We have the data, I just don't have it off the top of my head. We can give that to you, how much use that they get.
It strikes me that this is a perfect example of asking the question the wrong group. This is not a group that uses those services
So then
for the most part.
I use the gold, I use the gold one.
And I got a lot of feedback on that, and deal with them.
About in what regard.
About, well, like the part, when you call and ride, that it doesn't, these don't really serve their needs, and they had a couple of really good ideas. I don't know if now's the time.
Absolutely, that's the time. Yeah.
Yeah, they said, like one of the things would be to maybe have a loop bus that went out in the morning and then came back around midday. And then that one would go back and come back in the evening, and that would catch the people who have to get to Annapolis or the medical center or town center. That would give them an opportunity to go there, to either do something short term, or to give them an opportunity to go there for their employment, as an example. Another one we talked about was a volunteer system, and I understand that I didn't have enough time to go dig it up, but I understand in Old Town Alexandria, they have a whole volunteer system where you just sign up and I can sign up and say, I will drive anybody anywhere from 8 to noon. And that has been working fabulously, I'm told,
I think that's Partners in Care,
Partners in Care.
which is a not-for-profit, which is available here.
Yeah, they operate.
But that's geared towards senior citizens, right?
I knew
Primarily, but not exclusive.
they used to work, I don't know if it's the same, but they used to work in hand with hospitals a lot too. For people that, particularly if there was snow, if somebody had a four-wheel drive vehicle that was willing to volunteer their time, to take people to the hospital for whatever they needed to go there.
So we have that here in Pagoda Valley.
As far, I believe we do.
They do, they come to the transportation committee, commission meeting monthly.
Where do you go to find?
Information, Sharon Smith is the one that comes, I would have to,
Okay.
I can get you her contact information, and she can tell you more, but she comes to the transportation commission meetings every week.
Okay.
What are complaints about the problem?
So- Real quick, before, we had a loop system that went, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it went down Route 2 and up. I maybe went down Bunny Creek and up Route 2 and a big loop in the county. And because South County is so spread out, you know, unless you happen to be right on that route and you're going right on that route, it was a lot harder. So the call and ride is supposed to do the same thing with better. It covers the entire county and you can go anywhere you want, you're not just on that route, because we had such low ridership and the buses were driving around empty. Why don't we just pick you up in front of your house and take you to the front door of wherever you're going? So that was the idea. The monthly ridership for the South County call and ride is around, it was 3,500 last year, oh, that's 2 years ago. Wrong year. So South County call and ride is about 400 a month. Total ridership, and then the gold is, which gold includes all the way up the whole gold route, so it goes all the way up to Cromwell now, but that's around 2,000 a month. So I can try to get the numbers just for the Edgewater to Annapolis.
That would be helpful.
Is there,
Go ahead.
is there any analysis about who's taking the transportation? Demographics, is it older, is it younger, is it?
We did, so we have a draft transit development plan that's gonna come out, where I'm scheduling the meeting, for the Annapolis Mall, February 27th, it's still open. We did ridership survey, we did a lot of countywide stuff, I don't know about specifically on the Gold Line, the Edgewater line, but countywide, who's using it, did a lot of demographic and survey information on who's using it. But primarily it is transit dependent people that are using the transit service, don't really have options, we're not tracking a lot of choice rides.
So Carl, I got a question, I got a question for the group, everybody.
The gold bus, as I understand it, goes to the mall and then it goes to Westfield. It goes somewhere else after that?
Yes, so.
Okay, it used to go to Anne Arundel
It
Community
used to
College.
go, so when Annapolis ran it, it went from Edgewater to Community College and back.
Mhm.
And then the county took it over, I think in 2018. And so we broke it into two segments, from Edgewater to the mall and then the mall to the community college. We since then extended it from the community college up to Cromwell, so all the way up through to Glen Burnie. When that happened, we moved the break point from Church Circle, I believe is where it kind of stops and turns around. So you go from Edgewater to the mall to Church Circle and back. And then the other section, you can transfer anywhere, but I think the transfer point is at Church Circle, but anyway, it's in Annapolis. And then you can go all the way up to the community college or all the way to Glen Burnie.
I have an extra comment about this.
Yeah.
Historically, the bus doesn't always show up.
Okay,
My mother-in-law rides it and she has gone to the stop in front of the old Kmart or wherever it is in that mall now. And sometimes the bus just doesn't come. So she started waiting at the Walgreens where there is a shelter. And sometimes the bus just doesn't come.
okay, and that's good to know, and I'll pass that on. We just, within the past few months, or maybe it's 6 months now, less than 6 months maybe, we have a new system where we're tracking the buses electronically. We can see if they're out. So we're hoping to get better, be better, because we've had that complaint on other things. And our contract, we don't have a lot of money, what we're paying the contractors, so if they call out a rider, and especially with the bus shortage and stuff, we're short on drivers, so if one driver calls out or something, we'll miss segments of the routes on the run, so that is a concern in other areas as well, and we're trying to be better at that, I know.
Thank you.
Kate made a good point a minute ago. We may have asked the questions to the wrong group of people. But how can we get you guys on a bus? what would have to change? What would be done differently for one of you to want to ride the bus? Is it destination? Is it the time frequency? Is it just convenience factor? I mean, this is an open discussion that I think can help promote, because regardless of, who currently rides the bus, this is a diverse committee with different backgrounds, different mindsets, different beliefs. What can get you guys on that bus, right?
One of the problems in South County, and I mean South County, I don't mean Edgewater, I mean South County, is that you are car dependent. And if you get to the point where you don't have a driver's license anymore, you have to move or you are isolated. So there's a whole population, if you look at the percentage of people in South County who are retired, there's a whole population of people who are having to make a choice about moving away because there's no public transportation to get them places they want in an easy manner. And as I talk to friends in their 70s and 80s, it's one of the big concerns about, if I can't drive, I can't stay here.
So are they aware of the call and ride service? And so.
Not as
I'll let
much as
you-
they probably should be though.
I'll let you answer before I tell you what I've heard, but what are the issues with the call and ride service? That you know of, do you know? why
no,
they
I
use that?
The people I've talked to say, oh yeah, I've heard about it, but I don't know where it is or how to use it, and so that doesn't seem to be. It's not an answer that I can give you.
That's fine, it's maybe, I mean, we know that there are an awareness issue, right, I know there's an awareness issue, we're trying every avenue to get information out, and that's part of the routing buses. The other thing I know that PG County was doing a similar call and ride service. This is more kind of like on demand, they're call and ride, call ahead for 2 hours. I know that people that have used it will go up and go to the food line. And then they get done, you know, you call, you take the trip, you go to the food line, you get your groceries, what does that take you, 20, 30 minutes maybe? They get done, they come out, the bus might even still be there. But because of the 2 hour call ahead, then they have to call and wait 2 hours to use it, it's just not very convenient.
Yeah, right.
And then even if they do, maybe they call and say they can't, and then at some point they finally get somebody they know, they get a ride and they leave because they got another option in the 2 hours that they were waiting. So PG County was doing a similar service. One of the things they said is they're gonna try to make it a true, like, on-demand service where you use the phone or app, and then as soon as you call in, the next available time they'll come pick you up, so you don't have to have the 2 hour call in. I think that's something that we're looking at, how to do that. We informally allow you to do that now. We've got the Pingo app and service you can call, or you can use the app Pingo. And we don't advertise it as you can do it right away, but you can. If you just put your information in there, it'll come pick you up. You know, if they're available, if they're close by, they'll come get you as soon as they can. So you don't have to wait the 2 hours.
Could you spell?
Pingo, Pingo.
You get your question?
Well, I was about to call you out on something. This is not a diverse group by any means. Many of us will never need to take the bus. So I agree with Kate that we're not talking to the right people, and what do we need to do to talk to the right people?
So if I can follow that too, to shift the person we've heard from others. Early on in the process, we went out and did interviews I mentioned before. One group we talked to was the Bay Community Health. And talked to their leadership, folks leading both their medical and mental wellness programs. And they talked about this being a very important program, the call and ride for their clients. That would, you know, they're actually on the verge of, you know, when they need to get their own van to get people to their facility because of those issues of distance and of costs of that. The comments they had from their use, kind of echo what's been said about, you know, clients not being aware of it, but of course, if they've been in touch with Bay Community Health, they're gonna help them, they have their client support services, will actually make the call for folks, the 2 hour, and then the demand can become an issue. If they've got an 8 AM appointment, 6 AM, they can't place the call, so they need somebody to kind of call the day before, get on the list, the logistics of that become challenging. So, that was kind of their recommendations around it, so think about, you know, ways that they can make it more flexible, more readily available, so that you don't get stuck with, hey, we got no more rides today because it's booked up. But that there's an attention of just from an operations side, of how much can you afford to run it? That's something that's in the transportation development the development plan is looking at that cost per rider of what's the viability of our systems. Those same comments are kind of what we heard from the folks at Families, who again have worked with the community health network of service providers in South County. Again, the importance of this service, the limited awareness of the general public about it, that just, you know, glad that it's there, but wish it could be more available, more flexible.
And I'll just, one more thing before I go, pitch, you know, our commission, transportation commission is trying to get more funds to go to transit so we can have a better service, more visible, more frequency. And trying to come up with ways to get attention to it. So if there is a need or we would encourage you to also weigh in, on that as well, or whatever the need is during this process of what transportation, what money should be spent. I mean, we got the budget meetings coming up, weigh in on what you think the county should be spending money, so.
Good question. I don't have any idea how much public transportation is out there. But does the rides that we have servicing this area now, does it somehow, is there a way to link up with, say, the ones, and they have to have something in Annapolis, right? Some kind of circular or bus system in the city of Annapolis?
Yeah, so, and I don't know if you can pull up the whole county,
I don't have it on.
No.
but anyway, so, yeah, so the South County Colony is South County and Edgewater. And then you can use that to connect in Edgewater to the fixed route in Edgewater to Gold, which takes you to Annapolis, Annapolis Mall. Annapolis has its own services that kind of run up and down the Annapolis neck. But also then you can either take from the Annapolis Mall, there's some MTA regional routes, or also you can take the Gold and it goes up to Cromwell. There's more routes up there, so that both stay. Eventually you can go west from Annapolis to Crofton and over to Odenton and all that. And so you can hit RTA, which is the Howard County centric, service. We don't have a good link with PG County. I mean, other than there is the commuter bus service from the MTA runs from Annapolis and Savannah Park, and the Davidsville.
That goes to like the airport.
That'll go down, well, it goes to the downtown into DC. So
Okay.
you can take transit, but if you're trying to take a trip, you're gonna take multiple connections. It's gonna take a long time. So the only people that are using it are the ones that don't have a choice.
My only experience with any sort of system was with my father, who was very independent right up to his last days. And he would take some sort of bus service that came down, and they actually had lifts for people in wheelchairs. He would go up to dialysis or whatever he needed to do, and you know, they would take it from his driveway and drop him back off on his driveway.
And I guess that's not another service that we do offer that. We can cover that as elderly and disabled paratransit. That's countywide. Anywhere in the county actually serves some of the hospitals in Baltimore and some other places just outside of the county. But anyone that's, I don't think it's 55 and older or disabled, you can sign up and you can schedule those doctor's trips or other special trips. Similar to the column, that they'll come, you know, to your curb, like you said, come to the front door, wait for you, help you with the ADA issues and take you where you're going. So that is in that countywide. So if you're of certain age or disability, you can go just like the column, but countywide anywhere, and even once into Baltimore.
Does Colorado handle people in wheelchairs? Or would you?
Yeah, so all of our buses are ADA accessible and they have the lifts.
Courtney, do you want to introduce yourself and go ahead and?
Yeah, well, my name is Courtney because I think most of you know me. I'm with the county executive's office. I work with Brian a lot in the office of transportation. I'm gonna tell you, and Kate kind of said, this is the wrong group to talk to about transportation. We all have cars. We don't think that we live on a bus, and I'm gonna tell you, I work a lot with food insecurity, which is very connected to transportation. And in the mobile home communities over in Lions Creek, over far in Harwood, I know we're in a different region. When I go over there, I work with Brian to get pamphlets of the call and ride, the call and ride, right? And some of the services that are offered. Let's see, if I talk to 100 people, 99 of them do not have. And these are residents that do not have cars. As soon as they find out about it, some of them start using it, they start telling other folks, but because we are dependent on cars, we are not going to think the same way that they are thinking, how do I get to my doctor's appointment? I actually have to work with Bay Community Health to try to get people transportation in South County to go to their appointments, partly, so. I just like wanna put out there that a lot of people that are in need of the service, they don't even know it sometimes. And I'm not saying that as a bad reflection of the OT, I mean, me and Brian and James Kitchen, I'm working with him, special projects manager, to get the word out. We're like creating, yard signs in a sense, with QR codes on them, along Route 2 eventually. That's gonna get done to let people know there is a service, you know, you can use this, but we are not thinking the same as residents that hardly have food. We have to go down there with the mobile food pantry, and I give them flyers, resources to let them know, you can get to your doctor's office, you can get to Annapolis in your job. But I just want you to kind of think outside the box of, well, it's just easy, I'll just drive right down to there. Some people just can't drive right down there, they have to walk, like, I remember the first comment I ever heard in this group, why would people walk on Shady Side Road? Well, because not everybody has a car. So then they have to walk to their destination to get to the destination to take their bus. So I just wanted to point that out to y'all that not everyone has cars and not everyone knows about the service. And I do try to make it a mission everywhere I go, especially with food insecurity, let them know that there are transportation options. So I just wanted to put that.
And that's a good idea to keep in mind, as we're going through this conversation tonight, we're starting the northernmost part of Region 9 and work south, right? But it's good to keep that perspective in your forefront of your mind throughout the conversation. Obviously, we all bring our own experiences and our own understandings to the table, but it's also important to think about people who don't have those experiences as well, right? And people who are dependent on everything but an automobile. So when we're talking about with Kathy bringing up points from her friends and her community members about issues or aspects that can be done differently, think about that too. What with the Gold Route and Colin Ride and other services, even if it's just walking or biking, how can the Region 9 be improved to help be more accessible to all? Yeah.
Well, see, when you said, you know, what would it take for me to use public transportation? I mean, part of that is the convenience, and I think it would be almost the same. I thought the grocery store is a place that if I could like ride my bike out of my neighborhood to 214 in Mayo, and then I could expect that a bus would be there, and it would take me over to the, you know, to the shopping center where the grocery store is, and I could grab, you know, do my shopping, grab the thing, expect that a bus would be there like an hour later and take me back to somewhat like reasonably close to my home where I could walk or bike back. I would be all for that. I would like to be able to ride and walk and not have to get in my car, for, you know, a lot of different reasons. And so I think that type of thing, and that is part of the, making like shared use paths along our road, because most of the neighborhoods I think of in Mayo, you can't very safely get to where the bus would probably stop. You know, you have to almost drive there, which should be the whole purpose.
Nikki?
Just wanted, and forgive me for being late. You spoke about the gold and the call and ride. Are we looking to expand those types of services across the region? Are we looking to improve those types of services? Is it just about providing transportation or efficient transportation? The normal person doesn't think in 2-hour blocks. Even if I was doing a call and ride, I'm not calling 2 hours ahead. That's not how life operates. So what are we trying to achieve?
I think
Speak to that, Brian.
So that's what we're looking for you guys to provide input on, is what should we focus on? Where should we put our money? Should we cover the entire county and with less frequency? Should we focus it on certain areas and high frequency, you know, or, you know, should the county kind of flip what it's doing funding wise and pour a lot of money into transit? Or should it be more into bike paths and sharing? I mean, that's what we're looking for the community to give input on is what our, and I don't know where you hear, we said we have a transit development plan where I'm the public meeting, it's looking countywide at the services we're proposing to offer, and we're proposing to add more call and ride zones for other areas that don't have this,
throughout town.
I think we need to be like focused on the convenience and dependability and also creativity. And I keep stressing that it's not always, the government always doesn't by itself have the answers. You know, there's volunteers, there's other ways to do it. So I think just taking a, you know, and I'm not disparaging anything we do. I know, I can tell by this, there's a lot of great work going on. But I just think in order to do some of the things that we've been talking about here, might take something, a partnership between the communities and volunteers and the government. I mean, because you have limited resources, but if you use volunteers, your resources can be amazing, and I experienced that in my career.
Absolutely, and we've also talked with, TNC companies like Uber, and they don't really serve that county because even if they get one trip to go down there, they're not gonna have another trip to come back for a long time. So we've talked about doing subsidies just to have them serve the area. But there's a lot of restrictions on government purchasing and picking one vendor and those kinds of things that just don't make for quick and easy, coordination with private companies and us giving private companies money to help run these things. So that is it's just a challenge. It just makes it more difficult.
Right.
Probably why it hasn't been done.
Have you guys thought about doing the grant space program where you like would offer grant subsidies to companies who are not for profits who are willing to offer those services?
I know we funded partners, the county has funded Partners in Care and given them money to offer services in the past in other nonprofits. And they do that regularly, not just transportation for other things, but to what level could it be more? And have we specifically looking about, say, South County as a service? I don't know, if we've done that.
So Dr. Nick, to answer part of your question, I think this is where we gotta start thinking about connecting all those silos that Kate showed a couple meetings ago, right? And we're gonna do more of this in the March meeting, we have the recap. But some of us think, Region 9 should be more pro-tourism, right? And some of us think there are different areas, different pockets that could potentially have different types of some type of hub, right? So how, keeping all these thoughts we've progressed through this point, how can transportation help facilitate those ideas? How can it help supplement those ideas? So is it an extension of the go route? Is it more frequency? Is it a different system that doesn't exist yet? I don't know. So that's why we're here to have this conversation, to begin connecting everything together, right? Because like roads, it's all connected.
So if 2 hours is too long a lead time, I'd be looking for the areas that have the highest frequency calls and concentrate some resources in. So let's say Shady Side gets 20 calls a week, I'd have a car there. Or, based upon data, where's the heaviest usage, I'd consider some, smaller little centers or smaller little hubs. So that would be, without the data, it's hard for us to make a recommendation.
I heard you guys talking about bikes, and my apologies as well for being a little late. Is there a plan, or is the state looking at potentially funding like a direct bike path through Stockton? Because even so, I feel like there's enough bike traffic.
We'll touch on the bike path stuff in just a minute.
Okay.
I think we'll start kind of moving through this community by community, and one thing, I think there's a couple of things that emerged from this conversation about transit I'm gonna try to capture to see if it resonates with the group. One is that this group sees value in the call and ride, that there's a need for, there's a community in South County and Region 9 in particular that needs to be served by transit. And that it needs to be flexible and needs to be responsive to their needs. So, and we need to increase awareness about it. So I can see this group having a strategy or plan that I think says those things to support the county and office of transportation in improving that system in those ways. And also, as another idea, to be continuing to support nonprofits and volunteer groups, helping to expand capacity for shared, not transit driver for that, but for ride sharing in this area. And maybe a third, kind of continue to be creative in trying to figure out how to address what we acknowledge as a challenging issue of providing transit services in an area that is so broadly spread out.
pardon me, I just had a fourth, and that is that, look at the usage data and concentrate resources where there's a higher usage.
I would push back on that a bit, because at the moment, we don't know about who won't have usage. So are we doing enough to educate people to use it to begin with? Because if we do that, we're just going to keep going to the same people who use it all the time, and those who haven't used it will never get a chance to use it.
So this is really good conversation. We're gonna come back and revisit this at the end. The pizza's here. We're gonna take a quick break, to get some food. But before we do, so I'm giving shout outs all the time. We have a PAB, Planning Advisory Board member here, it's Harvard Davis. So I just wanted to give her a shout out. So we'll take 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes and come back.
Get yourself a piece of pizza.
Can I add one thing too, real quick?
Yeah.
We are also, this is not specifically this area, but we are, the county and other counties are looking at the tourism, we talk about tourism, ferry from Annapolis. And then in the presentation, I saw one of the things connected it down to Galesville, for one of their things. Also something that's under study and in the works, talking about public tourism in South County could be tied into that. That's the Bay larger.
Good. So I'm gonna ask the committee to get some pizza, and once you have, our guests are welcome to help themselves as well.
Thank you, Hamilton.
Yeah, the beach
Yes,
is,
thank you.
Hamilton's on it, and he's not even here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hamilton.
All right, everybody, so to talk about the Edgewater area, we'll start from Region 9 transportation discussion, and then to the Mail Road and probably SAC. So generally speaking, if you guys remember, we talked about the Edgewater area being a good example of a potential redevelopment or potential, ideas for new uses. We talked about the Kmart building, potential recreation center, stuff like that. But with all that in mind, we do hear a lot about the transportation concerns and issues and problems, as well as ideas. And one that we hear a lot about from a staff point about their outreach efforts is the lack of connection between businesses. Especially when you're talking about going across the side of the road, but even on the same side of the road, there's a major issue that we hear constantly. Limited parking, gaps in sidewalk, what I call a broken piece of the transportation network, where when you sidewalk that kind of go to nowhere, essentially, issues like that. And then obviously school safety and accessibility, making sure students can get to and from school without necessarily using a vehicle, but like the sidewalks, for example, and the crosswalks. So with that, those are for just the Route 2 specific corridor area right there. Is there anything, so our Edgewater folks, who wants to start off and add another bullet point that we haven't heard on this list? Carla?
Is there another Edgewater?
No, you're the Edgewater.
You did the plural, so I was
So,
gonna defer. Well, I've already brought up the public transportation scheduling changes and reliability. We've already talked about that, and the walkability issue of sidewalks to nowhere. Crosswalks might not be there. There's a curb cut, but not a crosswalk. There's a crosswalk, but no curb cut. There's too many crosswalks in a row and not enough crosswalks anywhere else.
So by a quick show of hands, you guys were, Kate asked you guys to make two lists. One your personal little community, one a region specific. How many had something Carla said on the region wide? Nobody had anything about connectivity on the region wide? There we go, okay. So this is what we're getting to, again, just to kind of reinforce the idea of well, we all live in our certain local communities, we all, understand our area pretty well. It's important to really think about and discuss the whole region as one piece, right? Where you guys are selected, you guys are part of this committee because you bring different ideas from different communities, but at the same time, these pieces need to come together to be one big puzzle, one big picture. So when we have these conversations, feel free to chime in, right? If there's something that's not discussed or nothing that's brought up, but or something off of a side street or you have your neighbor's grandson's third cousin that you visit to a lot. Let us know. Like this is supposed to be a big group conversation, and just feel free to chime in. If not, I'm calling. We have no problem calling on people. So
May I just suggest something for when we get to the discussion points? Is to do grid with all of these communities for us to see how they compare, at least have a baseline for what every community should have in terms of transportation, for instance, and where the gaps are. Because again, if we keep doing it like Edgewater, then Shady Side, we're going to continue to remain in silos. So we need to see everything together as Region 9.
So, yes, absolutely. The point of this is what you just said, and what I said, we're seeing it as one big region. I wholeheartedly agree. But for the conversation's sake, for the layout of the conversation, it's to help start that conversation. So we're gonna show these pieces, and then we're gonna rely on you all to help to help provide an input between the communities.
And we're working on the assumption that each of us has perhaps a unique perspective because it's closest to home.
And maybe helpful to define things, like we say the word connectivity. If we could be a little more specific, talking about walking, biking, roads. You know, I think even in these broad statements that come out sometimes, we just use the word connectivity, and everybody kind of has their own sense of what that means. So it's more specific as you can be when you write this up, I think would be very helpful.
Or all of the above.
So if I may then, on that, lack of connections, what does that mean?
Yeah, so we've heard a lot about the missing pedestrian network, right? Bike ped, there's issues with safety. A lot of them being, if it was better connected and systems were completed, like sidewalks were completed, or if there were, ability for someone to get on a bicycle and feel safe to get to their destination.
And Eric, if you go to the next slide, there's some information we got Brian to speak to, about some ideas.
Audrey?
I was just gonna say to the idea of schools and safety accessibility, but also because it's gonna alleviate a lot of that morning traffic. Because right now, like, as a person who commutes through Edgewater, when you have the high school, middle school, kids getting up in the morning and trying to get to school, and a lot of the people who actually live in Edgewater, I don't know that school buses even offered there, or they choose to walk, but that really puts up, like, it puts pressure point on our limited ways in and out, because then it's like everybody's taking two back up, and because there's gotta be a better way for them to get to, like, whether it be like some kind of, I don't know, a bridge over, like pedestrian bridge or something like that, or two pedestrian bridges. Plus, I've noticed that, traffic guard, there's like a pinch point there, because I've seen more and more cops and less traffic guards, I guess, because of just the way the economy is and or job market. And so that's putting like additional stress.
So to address some of these issues and concerns we've heard, there are potential recommendations that are kind of shown on the screen right now. And Brian and his transportation staff, they were working on different projects, and Brian, give any input on anything?
If you want to go through the recommendations here, so optimization of the signal system, they have smart signals now that we've done in certain corridors in the county, and so Route 2 could also be one to try to help get the traffic through that's there within the existing, we're not gonna add another name on Route 2 through Edgewater, I hope. So to how to get the best use of the road that's there, to help the traffic from congestion in the peak hours and getting through the school and that kind of thing, to the team. Also, one of the things in the last region plan, I'll just preface this by, I grew up in Edgewater, and frequently, so, I have a biased opinion, I guess. Anyway, one of the things that was in the last small area plan was a connection on the west side that ended up happening that's between the Giant all the way down to like the AutoZone or whatever. And so there are there's a little bit of that on the east side, like if you're going to Starbucks or whatever, you can hop out of the CVS, but it's not all the way, It's hard to turn to, if you're trying to go to Taco Bell, say, it's hard to get there from, if you're coming down south on Route 2, those kind of things. So the connectivity, if you can see those kind of parallel road networks, that would help both keep people off that have to come out on the main road just to turn back in or whatever, or even local traffic that's trying to get to some of those businesses from having to get out on Route 2. So that's one thing that was in the last small area plan. It was just kind of on that west side that I think would be a good idea for the east side and some of those areas. Some of that difficulty is there is some sections of the code that's sort of required, but it's not been enforced, or maybe it's not enforceable the way it's written for development.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think of Route 50. Across the Seven River, the service road is there on either side of Route 50 before you get to the Bay Ridge, servicing all those little like anglers. And all those, you're thinking something like that?
No, it'd just be kind of the connections that they are, like, it's already there. If you turn in at the gas station there, the light at the end of Mayor Road, and you can get over to the Giant. There's a road there. It's a parking lot road.
On the west side.
On the west side, right, so something similar, again, like the CVS and the Starbucks, if you could connect some of those other businesses, then we could make some parallel routes.
So it goes from the Giant down to John's Lumber.
Right.
So it goes back to CVS.
Yeah.
And the gas station, and the auto zone, and the backside of Lido's, and Pops, and the bank, and the airport, and up to the whole giant shopping center. And that works great.
Yes, it does.
So you're not talking about like the kind of how you can get from Chick-fil-A, down, like to the Starbucks, or not to the Starbucks, to the Wawa. You're not talking about like that, that.
Well, I mean, I don't know specifically all the way down to the model, you know, just all the
Okay,
way.
well, because there's like, that is like a neighborhood road where.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of issues with Southdown as with people from Wawa, and then, and also even just the apartment communities, the back roads we come through, and that's part of the reason that I think the old Giant building wasn't connected through, is because there's a big concern from the Southdown community about a lot of people using that light, and cut through the neighborhood street. So it's a balance between access and encouraging traffic on residential areas.
So moving forward, little bottlenecks and little issues, say Edgewater, say Shadeside. Should we take a handful of folks, and we had to do this at the last process, and have little subgroups to brainstorm, say, connecting Giant to Chick-fil-A, Giant to the Safeway. You know, I mean, with sidewalks or trails or however you want to do it. Because those are things that are local wish items, just like 20 years ago, Galesville wanted the sidewalk down to Muddy Creek Road for some reason. You know, but it took 20 years for them to get it. So can we crunch these problems off to the side? I know that we had sort of a question about whether we could have smaller groups to deal with that. Because there's gonna be a lot of little issues in every neighborhood that we're gonna have to go over.
So I think, so the short answer is yes, we have to be very mindful of the open meetings act, right? And one thing which means you can't have a quorum of SAC members meet to discuss, you could break off the smaller subcommittees, right? But one thing I would recommend is be as transparent as possible, aka come back to this group.
For sure.
Everything, no, transparency is a big topic. But, so there's absolutely an opportunity if you want to take a group of people and start meeting like that. But at the same time, we're gonna have, a transportation questionnaire on. So if you have ideas, or your committee, or your members of the community have ideas that they really want to see this, let us, that's the outlet, so that's an outlet to let everybody know what their ideas are for the transportation improvements for, the Region 9. And so, but if you're trying to get specifically, like.
So we should just say more connectivity in Edgewater and leave it at that, or and let Edgewater fight over it over the next 20 years? Or
Yeah, the SAC
should we
would have,
give them some goals now to be approved through the council so that it really gets worked on?
yeah, absolutely. So I think what point of this a point of this conversation tonight, as well as in March, is to have this conversation and say, how detailed do we want to go? We're not necessarily going to recommend in the final plan that we need a sidewalk from point A to point B.
Right.
Yeah, but if you want to say generally connectivity from the Giant to the Chick-fil-A, or big institution to big institution, then I think that's something that can be recommended as part of this overall process.
So it's a tough balancing act.
Yeah.
Because at least as I looked at the Region 7 plan, that level of specificity is not there. It was in the 20-year.
So we're not, in my words, and this isn't fully correct, but my words, small area plan got maybe 15 feet off the ground. These region plans maybe getting 10,000 feet off the ground, right? We're a little higher, we're a little more But we're not 100,000 feet like the GDP was. The GDP was very countywide. We're zooming in a little bit, but we're not getting down to the super specific point of our beacons.
But we need to give the communities the tools and the pathway to work with the county to get what they want. And if the communities have goals stated or in some fashion, then they can take it from there. But, we just can't say we want sidewalk from one end is Edgewater to the other and leave it at that.
So my understanding is that what we're saying, see these dotted lines here, the back roads that we're suggesting. And then that's the level of detail that we need to get to. And beyond that, I don't think we need to get. We've said, build these parallel access roads.
Sorry.
And I think making that recommendation should satisfy.
Is that what study potential for access roads on the sides of Route 2 means? Is that actually a service road? Or are you utilizing the streets that are there? I can't really read this map, right?
I don't know that we've gotten to that level of detail, but similar to the other side, is just the connection is there, whether it's a public road or a private road, or connection to the parking lot, it's just the connectivity is there, that people can move along that path.
So you don't have to do a U-turn on Route 2.
And then real quick, just to finish it up, increase bus service and frequency of bus service, and I'll go back a step and say maybe running the route that we are saying we're running first, and then we can look at increasing frequency. And then, again, adding bike paths, shared use paths, the county's kind of trying to separate. So there are bike lanes on Route 2, but I don't know, I've never seen anybody riding a bike on Route 2. And that's what I'm saying, the county's gone to, let's try to keep it safer and allow people to bike more safely, and so that recommendation is more shared use paths, so maybe along Route 2, you can do a shared use path instead of having them ride in the bike lane, and then kind of connect the networking. If you're on Stephen's Lane or something, the bike lane is fine, but on Route 2, you're terrible.
So I would add one more, and it's related to the parallel access roads. And that is reduce the number of turns off and onto Route 2. In other words, if you can channel some of that traffic off of Route 2, so that there isn't so much on, off, stop, start on Route 2. Relieve some of the traffic pressure on Route 2. It also keeps the traffic that's on there flowing better. And so I don't know if it's the same thing or a different one.
So we're really talking about engineering access to right, engineering transportation here and engineering, whether it's gonna be a service road, that's an engineering task.
But I mean, I'm not really aware that, I've kind of gone down, yeah, but I've kind of gone down this path and I didn't realize like how far down it went. So I guess like when you guys are engineering this, maybe making like the general public like really.
Some engineering company.
Aware of the actual existence of it instead of like. So that way, like, if I know this was available, then I would use that more.
Sure. But just going north on Route 2, the connection from the Shell station to the busy bees. They have to get off and back on Route 2, and that's not great. And those parking lots ought to be connected. The new Mexican restaurant there is an island unto itself.
Yes.
It ought to be connected to the Dunkin' Donuts or whatever's on the other side.
And
That's
I would make these same recommendations for 253 for Mayo Road. Every single business has its own parking lot, and one of them has gone so far as to put signs up saying, you can't park here. You can't park here to go there.
And everybody brings that to do their call.
Yeah.
You gotta actually-
Are you guys allowed to do like connect parking lots, because I know like down in my neighborhood, like people intentionally cordon off their parking lots to make sure that people can't I guess, try to cut
Planning
down
and
on the road
zoning.
traffic. Is that right?
Yeah, it just depends on how you run it, how you do it. So there have been access agreements required across development. When development comes in, there have been, the county has required a public access easement, across it.
Well, how would you work? And we don't have any legal people in here, but take for an example. Well, this is the place next door. They put up, the Reed is in Edgewater and then in the. I don't know what it is.
The print shop.
There's a something, not the print shop, but it's on the other side.
Yeah,
They put signs.
the electrical,
The home.
I wasn't gonna
They
snitch,
said,
but yes,
Stay the hell out of our parking lot.
that's what it says,
But, I mean, legally,
but close.
does the folks next door, they don't have to allow access through their property to get to somebody's ice cream stand? I mean, how would you go about changing something like that? I mean,
Yeah,
that's-
it would only be through the development process that they came in and redeveloped, then you could use,
Okay.
or the county or somebody would have to purchase any type of through their property.
That's
So
engineering part.
I'm gonna suggest, guys, that that's getting to a level of weeds that's probably not very productive for the limited amount of time we have.
I love the idea, but.
And the idea is great, but we don't
Get the
have,
roads, hurry up and get done with it.
we don't have to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
Our strategy is that where it's possible, it ought to happen, all right?
Yes.
Well, it just seems, Mayo is absorbing, not Mayo Road in Edgewater is absorbing a huge amount of traffic, because you're absorbing everybody who lives there. Everybody from Mayo
Yes.
who's cutting through, and everybody from Shadeside South who's
Yes.
cutting through to avoid getting on Route 2, and Route 2 is busy with a bunch of people from Calvert and Prince George and Berwick South.
Lane, that's connectivity right there. People are going around.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you guys are just at the squeeze point of everybody's trying to get through to get to whatever interstate they're trying to get to work.
Yeah, well, we saw that, what, on Tuesday, Monday?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, well, that's- yeah.
An accident on both sides, and it was like 2 hours to get through.
Eric, it's not changed to Mayor Road, next slide.
Yeah, so the Mail Road, they're very similar, to what we talked about, Carl actually, scooted this along, so thank you. Very similar recommendations from the very similar concerns, because this is, in the same area, and I believe Mail Road is in that designated, revitalization district that we talked about in the economy discussion. So again, one thing we've heard from this group and in conversations with the public as well is the design of the area. And one thing that transportation planning can use to its advantage is urban design aspects, right? And I know the phrase urban design potentially scares a lot of people, but when you have good design of buildings and infrastructure, or when you have good design of buildings and where the positions of parking and the positions of the building and all that kind of good stuff, that it helps facilitate good transportation planning in my experience, and in my opinion.
Can I ask a quick question on the, sorry, I'll wait till the next slide.
Well, I just want to say, you said urban design scares people. I think what people should be scared about now are 1970 suburban designs trying to do today's job. And that's where we find ourselves.
One last note on the subject, because it won't be our region planning, but the next group, or the group to the right of us, but hopefully they can take the notes. We do kind of, as I was driving home, we do kind of cohabitate, and as it's been expressed by this Muddy Creek traffic. I guess if somebody can look at maybe adding an additional lane on each side to 214, or some additional through a brick church or something, maybe making that like a 2-lane or some other alleviation, because I feel like right now we only have like one way in and one way out unless you go all the way around. And so we really need to be thinking about that as well, trying to like make it so that we don't have these pinch points going forward, especially if we're gonna think about adding additional people living down there, because, and more cars on the road, and even transportation. You can't get in and out, you can't get to your job, you can't get wherever you need to go, or like, God accident or something happened to you, you were in an accident, you need to get out to get to the hospital, you couldn't even get there. So I think we need to be looking at like other ways to increase our ability to get to Napa.
Where does the county and this organization work with the state on that cooperation of expanding lanes and so on with the county, within the county, but it's a state road, or maybe a state road to that?
Certainly, Brian, if you maybe give a little more, but from my understanding is there's a letter that gets sent to the state every year about the county's ideas of prioritization for state projects. And I think if there's enough public, there's enough public input, involvement, that you hear, the county exec hears it, that triggers that document. But I'll let Brian, if he's any more information.
Yeah, priority letter is kind of an annual request on spending for the state, but we even work regionally through the MPO on the transportation modeling, on adding lanes to Route 2 or Route 3 or I-97, or, you know, and looking at the big picture, 261. About adding lanes to 261, or is that shoulder? But yeah, so I mean, it just depends, but there's a lot of avenues, but big picture, you know, major road widens, we work with a regional model and look at where do extra lanes need to be added from a larger standpoint. And of course, the states are big systems, so they've got bigger picture ideas. And of course, the county then, each of the counties then is moving on their county, and then of course, each of the regions is in their region. So we are working with the state on 214 on improvements through the mayor peninsula. So, and the county is funding the design for that. And at least putting up the local share, if not more, depending on how the state funding.
The state county's been great on that, Stuart committed the money several years ago. State Park has been really helpful on this. So, the design process, Melody's gonna say something a little later on about reducing the scope of the project, but it is a perfect example of the county funding the early work, getting in the queue for the state funding. So when the state funding comes through, it can start building.
So the consolidated transportation plan for the state is public. You can go online and just type in CTP. You can see all the state projects that are in the books right now. There is a project for like 5% for 214 from Maryland 468 down to 14. I think near the Summit School, they're going to create like a roundabout. There's some widening going on there that's going to be happening there, as well as some geometric improvements in that area, as well as Route 2 from Arnold Road to Route 50. There will be some widening going on in those areas, but Google CTP, you'll be able to see all the projects for Anne Arundel County that, you know, maybe of interest.
On the county website?
Oh, no, on the state
website.
And it's CPT?
CTP, it stands for Consolidated Transportation Program. And you'll look up the one for FY 24, 29, I think. Just got approved. It's a huge document, PDF. Scroll down, because it includes every county in the state projects.
So,
Focus on Anne Arundel County, you'll be able to see some of those projects and.
so you say it's 2024 through 2029, is that what you said?
So recommendations that you guys would be, like the county would be making now would be till 30 to 37, 39 or something like that.
Yeah.
Then
Long range.
So moving on, and still in the same Edgewater area, so we have, the county has a Safe Routes to School program. It's also a nationwide program. There's a lot of areas that do this. And basically what it's designed to do here is to have that connectivity, aka installing sidewalks to complete that sidewalk network to make sure it's essentially a child can get to and from school without ever having to step off a sidewalk to get to their destination, right? As well as other safety factors and making sure stuff of that nature is protection of getting the individual to and from school. And it's not just children, it can also be teachers who work in the area, who live in the area, parents walking their kids to school. It's a really interesting program. If you guys are interested more into that, I would recommend, reading up on that. I don't know, Brian, have anything else to add to that?
No, just that, we did a study of 17 elementary schools, so Edgewater was one of them, and looked in more detail. But, obviously, the high school, middle school will have a big walk zone area too. And the school publishes those, but the New Anne Arundel's focus, one of the focuses is that you make walking elementary schools better, you make the communities, a lot of those communities, more walkable as well. So that's what the spending and focuses of New Anne Arundel is to make it walkable near schools.
Quick question, Eric, what are the numbers in the, that area there?
This area
The numbers on the, so this was an identified of all the possible improvements, and then it went through cost and prioritization of which ones should be done.
Alright, basically sidewalks.
Yeah, or crosswalks, or, maybe a crossing guard needs to be here, or this kind of thing.
Maybe Mr. Hawkins, you can say something about the sidewalks project that's just getting started.
Yeah,
Is that on here?
Yeah, we have, yes.
Okay.
yeah. So there are numerous sidewalk projects that are going on in Lake County. I was just forwarded a list of those projects from the project manager today. We have partner meetings once a month about these particular projects. There's not much I can really say about them because it's so many, but it's an ongoing effort to improve a multitude of sidewalks throughout the county.
And I can speak about that one specifically, and go back one slide, just that.
Brian, can you talk up just so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
there's
sorry.
a blower behind us that?
Yeah. So, I can talk about this one, because this one was a county request to the state to get funded. I think it might have been in the priority letter for several years. And so this again is to help walkability near the school. A lot of the kids, or some of the kids, park at the shopping center, walk to school, or after school, walk to the shopping center between game, before, at the end of school and before their game starts or whatever. So this is coming in, and one of the things it's also doing though, is to make it a little more walkable. There's kind of free flow rights, both from Mayo Road going west on 214, but also Stepney's Lane. And if you go to the next slide, I think you'll see, at least, I think this one shows the, that's Stepney's Lane right there. So you can see it's gonna take out those free flow rights and make it, more of a T intersection where we'll make it easier to walk across there. You won't have moving cars pulling through nonstop, you'll have to come to a stop. It might make it slower to get in and out of there, but it's gonna make it more walkable. And then there is gonna be a kind of a signal improvement down at, Mayo Road too, I don't know if it's on there, but it's gonna make it, 2 lanes. I don't know if it's gonna be a through lane and a left turn lane, like if you're facing the school, or if it's gonna be a shared left through. But anyway, they're making intersection improvements to help a little bit with congestion and try to get a few more people through there, through that intersection.
So instead of-
There've been huge number of accidents.
That's that way, or?
No,
Oh.
Mayo Road and 214.
Yeah. That's the sun.
Road.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, this is part of the sunspot.
Oh,
So
There's not gonna be
instead
a left.
of thinking about a pedestrian bridge to move the kids over the road, you're gonna slow down traffic.
Yeah, so the thing with pedestrian bridges is, kids, a lot of places, unless you put a barrier on the road to keep people crossing, people will still, instead of going up the stairs and going across and going back down, a lot, especially in urban areas, unless you have a high volume of traffic that it wants to make that move.
And is there
People-
something stopping us from the barrier?
No, but even if you put a barrier, I mean, there's a lot of places in the state where they've done this and people still run across the road. Those bridges are incredibly expensive and
Yeah.
don't provide the safety that you think they would, because of of people not being willing to use them.
Well, if you didn't have. They're up on, get the name of schools up in Baltimore City. There's a big boys' private school on one side of the road, the girls' private schools on the other, tons of kids. They put an overpass. Kids don't cross on the street, it's a very busy road. Kids don't go on the street, they're on the overpass. Sidewalks don't allow them to cross. There are traffic cameras and all the stuff there. There's no crossing guards. At that particular spot, and they don't have problems. I'm shaking my head that you're planning to slow traffic down at rush hour in the morning or to get more kids across the road. That sounds like it's either one or the other. I don't think that should be the way we're thinking.
Well, I mean, people are walking there now, so what we're doing is trying to do is slow them down to make it safer for the people that are walking,
Yeah.
provide a sidewalk for the people that are walking. We're not slowing down traffic on 214. It would be just turning traffic. If you're coming on Stepney's Lane right now, if you're coming out Stepney's Lane and you're going towards Riva, you can just go through there and you don't have to slow down.
Yeah.
So if somebody's walking and you don't see them in time, you can hit them because you're moving. But at least now you'll have to come to a full stop and then before you can carry
Yeah,
on.
but that backs up that whole Stephanie's lane, because then, like, there's no left-hand, like, turn signal there, and so there's no, so, like, traffic very easily backs up there, and like, and then that goes back to we're just depending on two, if something happens on two, then you automatically have everybody trying to get on Stephanie's, if you slowed it down even more. And so, and that road's not, and that also affects the businesses there, that affects the people that live there, because they can't get home, they can't go to the businesses there, like, if you have an accident, all those restaurants don't see a dinner. Like, so that's affecting that's their whole day, it's just gone, so like, I mean, I would just caution there's gonna be people make, I don't want to go on, people make this, some people are gonna choose to do things that aren't very smart, and then we would just hope that you would educate your children to use a traffic bridge and not run across 5 lanes of traffic at 50 miles an hour.
But that's fixable though, so I'm confused. You can literally put barriers to reduce who crosses the road and do campaigns and educational programs. I think the bigger problem I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the cost of doing the bridge.
It's not just the cost, the usage rates of bridges. There are places it works, there are places it does not work. So in this case, if you built it maybe the right way, because you do have a specific location that people are going. So that if you put the bridge and dump them further into the site, close to the high school, and that would be the majority of people crossing, then it could work there. But historically, there are a lot of reasons, especially when you have a lot of activity up and down the road, and you have a lot of different locations that people want to cross, they're not gonna walk 2,000 feet that way, and then up a bridge and over, and come back down, and walk 2,000 feet this way. When if there's a stoplight, or a stop, they're gonna cross. So like Route 2, that a lot of people have talked about adding a bridge there, but you'd have to add, up in Ritchie Highway, up, Severna Park, but you have to add bridges at every stoplight, and that cost is prohibitive. And even then, if you have a bunch of things that people want to get to, they just don't always get used. There's literature, there's studies, it's not always, doesn't always work. So it's very expensive, and it's not always the solution.
How many kids roughly have to cross that intersection twice a day?
I know the school has, the counts on the walkers,
I mean, it's not
at least a couple hundred.
There's a slew of buses jam up there.
There were 3 schools there that have walking students, in addition to all the buses. That's it.
Okay, that's.
I think what also happens is that like after school, especially when the weather is nice, the kids are just, they wanna go to the shopping center. They're not going home like right away, and so they just all walk right down the median. And they're right next to the road, and they're already there, and they're like heading towards the Kmart shopping center. And there's just a whole bunch of them, and they're high school students.
But if they have the sidewalks, then they'll have sidewalks to walk it on, right? And I mean, there's kids that now, they need a sidewalk, here's my car, here's the road, and they're in the road anyways, and I'm just like, where are your parents? But like, but I mean, it's just, it's inevitable, they're in high school.
But it does, I mean, to a certain extent though, like, people are already walking there, you see them walking on the side of the road, it seems like a good place to have a sidewalk, because it would clearly be used, like, you know, it does make sense.
And all of this is the balance between access and mobility, you know, you can close off every driveway and make it a lot more, that's what a highway is, right? You close off all access and you can only get on and off certain locations. You know, but then you have less access to the properties along that road. So it's all a balance between, again, different modes, walking and cars, you know, you could mandate nobody could walk on the road. And then you wouldn't have this and fatalities, you know, but there's a balance between access and mobility and safety and speed, and that's what the county's trying to balance, and it's been going more towards safety. There's a Vision Zero plan that's trying to, you know, make your commute more reliable, but maybe not necessarily faster. So, you know, even on 50 or whatever, as long as you know how long it's gonna take you to get to DC or wherever you're going, that's better than not knowing, you know, and then necessarily getting there maybe 5 minutes faster or slower, as long as you can plan.
So that was my, sorry, original question, what are we trying to approve, achieve? Because if the county is focused on safety, what are we wasting our time to talk about speed? Because if we're gonna give a recommendation for a bridge and it will never be considered, why are we even talking about it?
Well, there's the other side of the story. The county, in their wisdom over the last 50 years of design, has taken the major artery from the southern part of the county to Annapolis and north, and decided to turn it into a jammed up mess. And I can remember when they redid the bridge over South River. The big to-do was a gateway to South County, or the South County's gateway to Annapolis was the big to-do. And no sooner than that happened, Edgewater turned into a mess. And so we're designing backwards, just we're repairing stuff at this.
But to your point, Vicki, I wouldn't worry about, is it doable, is it expensive? Our job is to say it's necessary,
That's my point.
and make the county say no. So I hear you, Brian, and it's probably not feasible, or there are 1,000 reasons why not. But I think it's up to this committee to decide, is this something that we think would improve community life there? If we think that, we should say that, then that should be one of the bullets on the previous line.
The committee and members of the public as well. So this plan is going to potentially show recommendations that the county council, planning advisory board will not agree with, right, potentially. But this is an opportunity for this committee and members of the Region 9 who live and work and play here to get their voices heard.
My motto is make them say no. Make them say no.
Well, and that's why this committee is here, is we want to know what the community wants, what is the problem, what should we do? That's the whole point of the committee.
The community wants to not
For us
want
to
to
tell
kids
you.
going to work, and they don't want to slow down going to work.
We don't want an additional bottleneck.
Yeah, well, I was like, it is crazy, because my coworker, I'm gonna say anecdotally, commutes from Frederick to Annapolis, and she was complaining about it taking her an hour and 20 minutes to get to work, and it takes me 45. So I was like, that's a cautionary joke.
So to keep moving on, for the sake of time, this is all a really good conversation. I wanted to show this slide. I'm a little out of order if you're following along, but I wanted to jump to this. There are many different types of bike paths, mixed use paths, but these are pretty common here in Annapolis, or in the Anne Arundel County, I apologize. We also have sharrows, which is basically just the lane, where a bike can share the road with the car sharrow. I think it's taken out, I don't know, but that's how I said it. Anyway, so these are 3 different types of bike lanes that can be pictured, envisioned for the community. Obviously, different areas require different needs, and obviously these also have 3 different types of costs associated with them. But when you're thinking about recommendations for bike paths or additional sidewalks or mixed use paths, which are typically larger than sidewalks, these are just a few good ideas to kind of keep in mind to help talk about breaking down the terminology, right? We talked about sharing, being more specific. So that this is going to be a good example of that. And backing up, talking about Mayo Peninsula a little bit, we've heard, pardon me, just a moment, before we get there, I want to put a marker in for safety improvements at the Mayo Road 214 intersection. Every week there's an accident there, and I don't know whether it's a signal issue or a signage issue or a speeding issue, but, these are big accidents that are happening at speed. And I'm hoping the state and the county, Mr. Hawkins and company can figure out what the challenges are there and make a huge commitment to better safety at that intersection, and I think that ought to be one of our recommendations.
Big fines for red light running would go a long way.
I don't care what the how is, I'm most concerned about the what.
Yeah.
And that is improving the safety of that intersection.
Collinson's Point?
No,
Yes.
no, I'm talking about at the schools.
You're saying they were 253, 253 and 214.
And I said, well, yeah, okay.
Well,
Mayo Road.
Mayo and at 214 and 468 also.
Well, that's the next one, yes. So to kind of wrap up the Edgewater Mail area, talking more about, the safety, the connectivity with sidewalks and bike paths. I know Amelia and Matt, you guys are the mail representatives. Is there anything else that's kind of been missed that we haven't talked about?
I really like the idea of either bike lanes or I think the shared use paths would be very helpful. I like the idea of connecting all the three major parks in Mayo. And I don't think that the path has to be directly on 214, but if it was a way to connect the parks and then move around, I think that would be really helpful. And then for the neighborhoods to be able to get the different commercial areas and the different neighborhoods within Mayo, because you could really eliminate some of the road traffic if you could go walk or ride your bike to get your carry out, or pick up your, go pick up and walk, be able to safely walk to the next neighborhood across 214 to, pick up your kid who's at their friend's house. Or, I mean, there's just a lot of local moving around where if you had more accessibility with the biking and the walking, that you don't have to get in the car. I mean, I don't even own a bike, but I would love to bike around Mayo if I felt like if it was safe. I mean, I would love to bike down to the park and then go there and come back. But there's no way I have to get in my car to drive a mile and a half to park at the park, go for a hike. I mean, it's ridiculous. It'd be nice to have that connection.
There are geometric improvements happening. And it is, definitely is, geometric improvements are happening on 214, which will include Mayo Road at that intersection. It is in the CTP. I would advise you go and take a look.
It's all a whole bunch of plan. I mean, there's a few, but there's almost no for Edgewater and then our whole Region 9. There's a bunch of projected, like, we're planning to do bike paths here, or we thought bike paths might be a good idea here, but they don't exist. There's none in Shadyside, there's none in like the Gilgo West River area. You can't be in Chalk Point or Shadyside and get to Christopher's. You can't be in one of the Deal neighborhoods and get over to like the hardware store and the library.
I do it.
You do it. So you're than me.
So I run with my kid and my two dogs, so it just kind of gets me into my life and my own.
You're that. Goodbye, and I close my eyes.
Rich, Joe.
I was just gonna say, you gave illustrations of 3 different types of bike paths. But you're gonna need to use all of them, a mix of them wherever you are going to put in bike paths. And you're not just picking one.
Correct, yeah, this is just a generalized breakdown of,
I would say we've been probably, I don't know about the rest of the group, but a separated bike lane on Muddy Creek. That way you could kind of create a buffer, not just for the cars, but also for the bikes to divert them, because sometimes they're going like 6 bikes, 7 bikes a week on Muddy Creek. And it just creates a traffic jam. Not that I don't mind sharing my roads, but I'm at the same time, I'm like,
No,
come on.
there's also roads in South County that are not appropriate for bicycling. I mean,
Muddy Creek south of Dalesville, is one.
yes,
Now you take your life in your hands.
Yeah. there's no stuff like, I don't know why there's this great stuff.
I'm
Yeah,
patiently
sure.
waiting for South County,
We're gonna
Holland Point, North Beach area. We're not even there yet, but yes, it's the road.
Next
now.
slide. We're gonna spread this conversation wider than just Edgewater.
Yes.
Moving.
Wider than about bicycles.
Absolutely, and so we'll talking in the next section of the Region 9 is just that, the West River, the Elmville, Shady Side, the nutrition area. Again, a lot of similar concerns, but one more specific here is, the width of roadways and the lack of the shoulders. And just the amount of traffic I hear backed up from farming equipment and I mean, that's normal stuff, I guess, but just the overall safety concerns because of the current infrastructure, right? And there's a lot of collisions, a lot of crashes that happen, and I think we've sent you that, the crash in Vision Zero. Highly recommend looking at that if you guys haven't, I know, if you know, and then again, lack of water connecting facilities, another point that we've talked about.
Sorry, can you just clarify facilities, or do we need paths?
Yeah, paths, infrastructure, any potential, bike parking, that stuff to that nature. Even maybe, recreation areas where you walk to kind of relax and sit, whatever, that kind of stuff. I mean, overall, just flooding, flooding is a major concern and a major aspect of daily life in Region 9. And that obviously, impacts the transportation network immensely, right? When there's flooding, it's roads shut down, or people, drive much differently than they maybe should.
I have a question related to that. Who maintains the ditches?
Nobody.
I think that's just a key issue. I mean, I've been told that if we just had a regular maintenance of the ditches on the side of the road, we could eliminate some of these flooding problems. And, so I wondered, is there a regular maintenance program? Who's responsible? And they don't do what they're
It
supposed
depends on the
to
road.
do.
If it's a state road, if it's a state road, it's a state, if it's a county road, it's county, so.
Well, both. I'd like that.
And the other, I mean, South County is real flat too, so some of that, there is maintenance issues that probably moved out. A lot of times there's nowhere for that work, yeah.
So that's what I was gonna say, is like, we talked about erosion and planting, and we've seen state highway come together to do those great offsets to do the carbon trap along roadways. And I don't know why it's not a conversation that the county is having, maybe they are behind closed doors, but like, why aren't we planting, like, we know so much about rainwater erosion and like planting for rain gardens, like, why aren't we looking at, instead of just like, let's put in more ditches to funnel the water down to the end of the street, so then it's not my problem, it's my neighbor's problem. Like, why aren't we looking at trapping that water the best way we can and planting more bay grasses or whatever?
There's no way you're gonna trap all the water in
Trap
Princeton.
all of it, but you can help alleviate that problem by doing some plantings, or at least having a tax credit program or something there to like help with some of that.
So area buffers will take some of the road runoff,
Yeah,
they won't eliminate the flooding.
but another big problem also, the culverts are old, they've not been maintained.
There are.
Some of them are crushed.
Yeah.
They're, there's one right where we live.
So you want another 9-month project?
Seriously, on Columbia Beach Road, all of the culverts are crushed or broken.
Yeah, but they.
Every single one. So every time it rains, people literally cannot leave their houses for days.
Yeah, but
We've
they.
been promised for a culvert at our house to be fixed for over a year and a half. We haven't seen anything, heard anything, so saying all that to say, it's bigger than just feeding the drains. Because they're no good.
Yeah, I have a piece of property on Scotttown Road, and that's county maintained. And I called the county about, because the culvert pipe has rusted and rust. I called them. And they came right out, okay, and the guy comes out and he looks, oh, we marked that, that's your schedule. I said, well, how about it? To their credit, they were back down there within the month, and they fixed it, then they went on down and fixed it.
At this point, bring racing to it.
Yes.
Columbia Beach has requested several times for culverts to be fixed.
Is that state or county?
County,
You all?
county road. They're promised, they're never fixed. So there needs to be a bigger assessment about everything that's happening in the region in terms of things like that, and whether or not places are equitably being dealt with.
The other thing that we have.
I'm the only white person on, that has property there on.
And you have to be a white person involved.
And they didn't do a color, I would say. But they had, I'll tell you, they had marked it the year previous and hadn't come out. But I called them and gave them an earful, and I met with the fellow. I wanted to meet with them, and they fixed it, and then they went and fixed all of them on that side, and that's right on the other side from you.
So
You
it's,
gotta-
the
other things that
You gotta yell.
we need to
Wow.
talk about in this area.
yeah, so it sounds like accountability from the government standpoint is key, making sure when the government says they're gonna do something, they're gonna do this, right? So keeping that as a point and connecting it to protection and safety and accessibility. What other aspects of the Galesville, West River area that we're talking about right now, should be looked at? So Kathy, I'm gonna call on you, because you were talking a minute ago, as far as I'm doing it, and you're Galesville. How's Galesville doing? Well, what can be improved or better maintained, or ideas you have for transportation in Galesville?
Well, I think, I always hear about the connectivity along the waterfront, which we're gonna be dealing with. We have a group that's coordinating, and working together to try to maybe re-envision our waterfront, to improve it for the people and the environment and the wildlife. And so we're excited about that, but, there also needs to be connectivity down our main road, down Main Street. And, the bike path idea, I mean, people are in a place to walk, because it's very dangerous right down there at the waterfront, trying to get down if you're just taking a walk. I mean, in this one intersection, you're taking your life in your own hands sometimes, because you just can't see where the cars are coming down. So I get a lot of feedback, about getting the bike paths down there and the connectivity. And I've already mentioned the drainage, and we also have an issue with traffic speed. And I think we've had a number of suggestions on how to deal with that, but if they don't, nobody can come to an agreement on what that might be, because if you put in speed bumps, people who live on that road don't want speed bumps or those types of things. So, we've had the state there do an analysis of the speed, but again, we just don't have a solution yet. We think maybe a camera.
So there is new legislation that got passed that starting, I think, last October or something, the county is allowed to put speed cameras out. And so the counties, I think they've ordered, I don't know exactly where that police department has ordered a number of mobile speed cameras to then be able to move around. And I think legislation, school zones and residential areas, the big road that's over a certain speed or whatever, then the county can.
And also running red lights at that high.
Also, that legislation also.
I mean, that's insane. It happened to us just the other day. I mean, people just coming, and then the mix of now they have the fire department, and they have the flashing yellow light, and everybody's a little confused there, but they get through the flashing light and they think they should just take the yellow light and just keep going through the red light. And it's.
But to his point about the speed focus, Bruce, I encourage you to reach out to Courtney. She's a community liaison from the county, reach out for speed issues to the police department, maintenance issues. There is a stormwater department that does put in a lot of stormwater benefit and get rid of that terminology. It's very similar to rainbow and stuff. All over the county, they're just working And so they, you know, if there's a community priority, if you get enough people asking you in this area to get treated first, then, you know, obviously they'll start.
One angle you may want to try in Galesville, is you have a school. And just crossing county into Calvert County, just below Friendship, you take Boyd's Turn Road down to Sneed's, they put a speed zone in front of the school there, the elementary school there. And it is down, it drops down, I don't know, 25, 30 miles an hour. It goes very low. You got a camera there, you got a big sign on there saying year round. Whether school's in or whether not.
I'm not seeing any school zone that doesn't say year round. All of them are year round. Seems like.
But they put it there, and it's been 3 or 4 years ago, now they put it in, and you gotta go slow.
That's
I
straight.
bet that's a good money maker for the town.
Well, but to the point, people shouldn't be using Galesville main drag as a drag strip. I mean, in the summertime, it's terrible, when the guys, when folks finish drinking up at the bars down there, and they head home, they go home in a hurry.
A lot of outside people coming in that place, the motorcycles and. Yeah.
So before you go off this slide, I really recommend that you gotta put 261 on there. I'm surprised it's not listed for.
You better slide on that.
You have your own.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a state highway slide there, so I don't want to have it not listed with these other highways.
So, and I want to build on
And
that
then,
in terms of the bottlenecks for us in South County. If there's an accident on Muddy Creek.
Yeah.
You cannot get over to 2 and get off of the crossroads, because there's never anybody there to help you off. At least one of those key crossroads ought to be circled, so that there's a better traffic flow.
So like South River Clubhouse.
Either south, they'll flunk or up.
Well, yeah,
I,
those are the two.
Those
I'm
are
sorry,
the
I
two
see, I got a whole slide here.
Or 255.
So,
But the minute Muddy
didn't see
Creek
the
shuts
title.
down, you're stuck. And you can spend 2 hours trying to get across to get onto 2 to go south.
But they could even put a stoplight at, what is that, Owensville subway?
Owenville Center, 255.
Yeah, if they put a stoplight at the other side of that, or it needs with 2, I feel like that would.
And the traffic circle in Lothian helps a lot, and people are learning how to use them. It takes a while.
That does.
The one in Deal works, takes a while, but it moves traffic. And what we have right now is we have 2 roads in and out for all the population, and 2 is also south of us. It's not just South County, it's all of Calvert moving north. And we've had 2 fatalities, 3 fatalities in our area in the last Shady Side Road and Muddy Creek.
So Kate, is there anything else you'd like to talk about West River? Since our fearless leader is the West River.
On the, but that it really are, we all have the same thing. For those of us, the few of us in West River, we all have to get out onto Muddy Creek. And Muddy Creek is a tough road to get out on, especially where there's curves.
Yes.
You know, I come in off of Shady Side Road where there's a curve coming north and curve coming south. You take your life in your hands. There's not enough. I don't know whether it's a caution sign, something to let people know who don't know the roads. There's people coming onto the road there. You see that a bit in Shady Side. A couple places where there's a warning that there's traffic coming into the road. If you're coming south on Muddy Creek, there's nothing to tell you that you're about to have somebody pull in front of you. And it's scary. And our road is not the only one. What is there's a road on Polling House, on 2, same kind of thing. We really need to look at those access roads to the major transportation roads and find a way to make them safer.
So then, Nikki, how do you feel about Shady Side? Is there anything that has been said you'd like to bring up? I know you, Bill, and BK are the Shady Side reps tonight.
I'm offended that the slide isn't on there for Shady's area, but besides that. There's no slide on there for Shady's side.
Well, I don't have one either.
But they should, that's the point. We spent 50 minutes on it, well, everybody needs their slide. Similar things, but also, is this also where, and again, I am in the grand scheme of things, I'm fairly new in the area. Is there a logical reason why there is no public transportation in this area? Is there a consideration for extending a similar system as what is in,
The gold line in Edgewater.
the Gold Bond or Colin Ride to that area as well? Is there anything in place?
I will speak that I know we had an organized bus system prior to COVID, like a very mini bus system, but it was run by, I believe, it was pretty much volunteer operated and community alliance about that. And so it's like, when you have one person literally driving the bus and that one person we saw with the water taxi very recently, and that one person, it's their passion project, and that's the problem with like volunteer stuff, and then that person is no longer able to do that for whatever reason, kind of falls to the wayside. I do know, because I worked on another board where a gentleman was also volunteering time to drive that bus, that they didn't have people utilizing it, and so I think it was being evaluated for like, if you're not using it, then you're losing it, so, I mean, that's probably part of the problem too, is people weren't using it the way they could, and I don't know if that's for lack of knowledge about the resource, or whether it was just not accessible to them, I don't know, because it was a volunteer or effort, whether they really took the time to really go back and survey and find out why it was being used the way they thought it was.
Does the Colin Ride not go to Shadyside?
She might have been here when we talked about it. It's anywhere south of 214 and Edgewater, and it's covered by the South Tank Mall.
So it might, I've never heard of it, and I'll ask the
That's what you
community when I
said, most
go.
people haven't heard of it.
I'll ask them on their beach when I go, if they've heard of it. I've never ever heard of it.
2 hours notice, call them up and send a ADA compliant bus to your house.
But again, 2 hours, so that's a recommendation, but that time.
We talked about that.
Nobody has a 2 hours.
So I didn't hear about it either, didn't know about it. Just getting some more details on how that worked,
Yeah,
so I could think about how to make it better. I don't even know how it works yet, so.
same.
But the 2 hours is problematic in my mind, but it's really, I don't know, we gotta think about how, first of all, the service was there, I've never heard of it, how do we use it, how do we make it work for our daily lifestyle? And then if it doesn't, how can we suggest to adjust it to make it work our daily lifestyle? You know, I have no idea how to suggest an improvement till I know how it works.
Bill, DK?
I have question that is here. Am I supposed to be tying these recommendations in with Kate's question? That she asked at the beginning of the night, or just,
However you see fit.
okay. Well, one thing that we need to remember, in this area, in general, Washington vicinity, is we are in one of the highest pedestrian, accident areas in the country. All of Washington area, with the bicycles and pedestrians, a lot of it is in Washington, but it pays out into this area, it's Annapolis. So cars and pedestrians are like oil and water for the most part. And when you get to
If you're on the outside.
deal in Shadyside, which are destination areas seasonally and sometimes not even seasonally. When you get to bicycles, you have people coming here to ride their bicycles, and not just local people out trying to get to the corner hardware store or go to the library. And you have people coming to Harwood, to the high school, unloading 20 bicycles and riding down every bucolic road we have to offer them. And these roads are dangerous enough, just cars only. And to try to carve out a bike lane on Shady Side Road or, God forbid, Owensville Sunday Road, would be prohibitively expensive. Plus, the roads marginally handle just cars that are on the roads. Trying to add bicycles to those roads does everybody a disservice. You're gonna kill bicyclists, and you're gonna cause people to have, you know, traumatic injuries and nightmares of running over bicyclists. And so, where do you go from there? You have to have dedicated bike paths and pedestrian paths. And I went to a city, a few years back, Rochester, Minnesota. And I could not believe how bicycle friendly the town is. It was designed, it seemed like they designed the town around bicycles. And they took advantage of the lay of the land, where you had creek running through the center of the town. They had parks because people couldn't build houses down there. So you had paths along and the creeks, you know, they break and they go in different directions. Bike paths and pedestrian paths, you could cover the whole city on a bicycle where you could walk. And they had busy intersections, just like we have, really busy. And then some of them, they had overpasses across the interstate that goes right by there. So if there is the will and the determination of the people around here to want that, we could have it. We don't have to have a white painted line on a road that doesn't even have lines painted on it now anyway, because it's too narrow. And there are ditches, and so we have physical constraints, but we could also, in some areas, use those physical barriers, those lay of the land to benefit. You look at over in Kent Island, they put bike path, a pedestrian path right through the marsh. They just put a pier right on through, and it parallels 50, right on through all the communities along the way there. And so some people are thinking more creatively and not just with their wallets when they do this kind of stuff. And I think that's what we are gonna have to do when it comes to our area, because we are a destination area. Shady Side in the summertime has a new boat ramp. Not new now, but fairly new, and people come from all over to use that boat. So Shady Side Road not only has the local traffic, but it has out of town traffic towing boats.
And it's become as serious bicycle.
Yeah, and you put bicycles into the mix, I just, it makes me wince. People run down that road with their kids, gives me shivers. So the other thing that is part of the question that was asked at the beginning of the thing was things that, I don't think traffic lights are a cure for volume. And you know, I have to, from Shady Side, I have to go to Arnold 2-3 times a week to do business, and I have to go to Jessup from Shady Side. And I try to avoid Edgewater. I come down Regal Road. Guess what? They just put a new light in on Regal Road. I mean, it's like, and they spent real money on that intersection.
Yeah,
I mean,
More than.
a lot of money.
You don't want to.
And so traffic lights are not the answer if you could probably put a traffic circle in. I mean, 20 years ago, we were pushing traffic circles with the last smart area plan. And the one in Friendship hadn't been built yet. They used to have horrendous accidents there, Friendship Road, 261 and Route 2. People just would sail right, and now people sail right through traffic north, south, on Route 2. They drive clean through the circle to the point where the concrete curves right in the faces. But traffic circles, they work. I would hope they would look into one, say, in Harwood, where it's another bottleneck for people going north, south, right there at the high school, or so those are small, that's a small list, but that's a big ask, I guess.
Brian, can I ask you to comment? I think we have a slide of the walk and roll recommendations for this part of the county, but can you kind of tell us a little bit about the bike ped, especially the bike recommendation that came out of the walk and roll plan for this area?
For this area or?
Yeah.
The whole South County? I mean, it's available online. I think the primary, well, I have to look exactly to see.
Yeah.
There is a link to it in the background information we got in terms of reading
For
for
rock
this
and roll.
meeting.
But again, what I said primarily is the shared use path is the way it's trying to separate the bikes from the traffic.
So in line with what
Yeah.
was recommended.
So what I'm hearing Bill say is, maybe not the road is the path for the bikes. Maybe we use some other topographical things.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you could,
More like
it doesn't have to
the
be on the road, right, but you wanna go wherever the people are going, so, right. If it's primarily recreation, then absolutely doesn't.
We have a couple folks who ride bicycles on Shaverside Road from Christopher's down to Mohan's, to his little store. And I have almost had them coming in the dark at night, and Mohan provides for free, all these people, all that who's going to get one, reflective vest, lights, you know, he has all that stuff, he gives it to people, and they don't wear it. And they're all dressed in black on a dark night, and, you know, thank God I have it, and I look out for them. But again, like Bill's saying, I live there, I know they're on the roads, right? I know to be careful and look, and there's pedestrians out there walking every once in a while, going down to Mohan's to get a beer or something like that. But the people who aren't local, and those two recent fatality accidents, not locals. Right, so they just came around, peeled around the corner, took out the telephone pole, but the road was closed for 5 hours. Cause it was a fatality, and, the time before that, the road was closed for 5 hours, again, a fatality, same general area. But it also took back power and internet and stuff like that for a while. So that means nobody can get in and nobody can get out. I'm assuming because the police are there, the fire truck's there, that if there was a true medical emergency downhill from there, the animals are good people and they figure out how to get an ambulance out, but for us, no cars can get in. And the same thing happens when we get a major high water event, and that's already on the plans to fix. And that's just past Mohan's store there, you know where that is?
Before the firehouse.
Before the firehouse. The headwaters of South Creek fills up and it floods the store, but talk about, man, I felt so sorry for the police guys sitting there blocking the road. They had the fire truck blocking the road, telling all these people on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock, you can't go any further, right? I know, mister, in your big four-wheel drive jacket pickup, you can't go either, right? And I heard, because I was really close, I heard the yelling and the cars honking. What on earth is going on? Dogs start barking. So I went down there to see what was going on. These poor guys would have to be there all night, telling all these people that were madder than a wet hen that they couldn't go home, right? And they couldn't, you know, the babysitter was going to stay all night. I mean, it was 10 o'clock, they were coming home from the evening out. I was making a bunch of brownies for them the next day. I went, these poor guys deserve these brownies. I ain't one of those people involved. I said, look, here's a whole tray if you want more. Here's another. It's got more. You guys are gonna have a bad night.
I have already, and not everybody can do this, but I already have contingency plans. Because a lot of these accidents happen on the weekends. And I can't get out, Shady Side. And we'll land at the dock. Our dock is right in the house, and I'll hear it on, somebody will call me and say, you can't get that shade side. So I have a vehicle in Gale, and my mother-in-law, and we go over Woodfields and we unload in Woodfields and keep going, because it's become a regular thing.
There was it was SROA football team that had to get some kids out of Shakeside and you get them in the boat and bring them
Right.
close one time.
Well, and that's in emergencies, right? You know, and it's not if, it's when, you know, we are gonna
Depends
have
on the
enough.
time is out, because we can't get a boat in certain places if the time is out.
Well, the time being out's not the problem, it's the time
We
being
got
7
plenty of
feet's the
water.
problem. Low tide is okay, you're not gonna drown in the river took flooded, but high tide like Isabel, which was only a tropical storm, right? 7-foot storm surge, and that just, you know, you couldn't get out of Shadyside at all.
We just had a 5 foot.
Yeah.
This last.
We've had
Yes.
So to kind of wrap up this section, we still have Audrey and Neil.
And Roger.
And Neil, he's got a full section, so he's patient. So is there anything else we haven't talked about in Neil that you think would be important to share with?
I mean, it's all pretty much the same, maybe some type of community, looking at a community hub, like maybe something besides the pull and ride that. Like we could set up something again with a system of buses hitting like the libraries and other places where there's at least the ability to park some cars and leave it there for some time, and you could plan like if I'm here by this certain time, that way you park and ride. Yeah, kind of thing, and then, bike path, walking lane, a little more access, so I'm not running the road, but again, maybe being more creative to your point, like, we like the vacation and dock a lot, and they're very creative there, they, again, use the marsh, they use the water line. We have plenty of low-lying marshland that could take you from like Skippers into the neighborhood walking. I mean, the funny thing about Deal is most of the waterfront is not actually owned by any one person, it's owned by the community, so that could be an opportunity to maybe put a walking path around through the communities on the waterfront. That would make it easier to egress along that. Drainage, again, road repairs, and then, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, there's some pretty rough roads. Yeah.
So we did have, we've had heard on the city county, probably going back to the small area and sidewalks and deal. And the state did a study, feasibility study, a couple of years back, maybe. That looked at sidewalks. I think they might have looked at bike lanes too, but I know it was at least sidewalks, for a portion of that. So the county was gonna try to pick that up and move it forward.
Excellent, excellent, because they wanted to do a sidewalk from basically the bridge.
It's up to, so the county bought some land north of the library that they're doing a park there,
Yeah.
so that's where we were thinking it's maybe from there, because they're doing like a path, I don't know if it's a sidewalk, it's like a path along the road, but not on the road. So maybe extend that path from the library around to the bridge.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And the shops in Deal, that whole little consignment strip, and then on the other side of the bridge over Rockville Creek.
Down,
Well,
Those shop owners have all said that it would be helpful if they could, if people could park at one shop and walk, as opposed to pulling out,
Yeah.
pulling in.
now, there would be property issues there for some of that, so again, that was part of our reason for wanting to go to community, is if we have to buy property from property owners, we want the community to say, yeah, this is, you know, the community wants this, it's not just, you know, somebody pushing it. It's for the benefit of the whole community, and they really want it, so we're asking for some of your property.
part of that might be just education, because like, so if they were to build a part of a way, so like right now I have my own crazy path, Phil's worried about my safety, but I like know my, like, because if I get to the South County Cafe, or if I go like around and then you get to like the second wind shops, you can jump across to another parking lot and go up, and then you're back in the Harbor Cove area, and then you can come around that way. And then the sketchiest part is from Harbor Cove to the library, because then you have the shoulder and so I'm like, not, so that's the only part where I'm kind of like, I'm just gonna look both ways and dice it, but I mean, so I'm saying like, there was some advocacy and education going along with some general pathways. I think, you to keep it interconnectedly, like make your way
Yeah,
across.
there you go. And it'd be really nice in that deal's not deal. I mean, for the Shadyside people, deal's town, right? I don't know that deal people go to Shadyside because there's not really anything
We
there.
do, for the ice cream.
For ice cream, and wash your car. There's plenty of other places to get a bottle on, it's like Shadyside, right? But it would be really nice to have the sidewalks go down to Christopher's, which addresses the people walking. And Christopher's employs a lot of people, and a lot of them are walking down the road to work.
And I was gonna say, even for the West River people, I was thinking like down in the Cedarly area, cause if they even had in the Chalk Point area, if they even had like a little strip of sidewalk there to get them out to those shops, because I know a lot of the kids, like, or I don't know if they do anymore, because I'm not really following what happened at the gas station, but I know back in the day, we would walk to the gas station to get like snacks or whatever.
Yeah, you still see people walking on that road.
So, and that road is like, every time I drive it, I'm like 10 and 2, hoping it'll.
It's hard when you have two cars on that road, it, let alone anyone walking anywhere on it. And there's really nowhere to step off, because
The
it's like
ditch,
ditch and it's standing water.
Right.
It only takes money, so. If you're advocating,
Where's mine?
we would love you to advocate for more transportation.
So can I just ask about this though? I mean, we're talking about drivers who feel unsafe on these roads. The pedestrians must feel unsafe. I mean, does it take a bunch of accidents and fatalities for the county to prioritize these kinds of things? I mean, if we add up all the things that were on our list, 258, 263, all the rest of the 261, all the rest of these things, we're talking about 50 miles of sidewalks and bike lanes. And I just don't see the county popping up that, so.
So I would invite anybody who
Oh, yeah.
feels really strongly about sidewalks to show up at the county budget meeting next week and to argue on behalf of more sidewalks for South County.
And they listen to those,
And it's recorded.
those meetings. I'll just tell you, the other communities have come in and asked, you know, they had 3 or 4 people asking for one improvement that's been funded, you know. Obviously, they're not gonna fund everything, but they do listen at those meetings.
Actually, I have something to add to that. Sorry, popping in later. So this is also something that the traffic APFs, they have to include multimodal transportation to include pedestrians, bikes. And it needs to be part of the decision-making process, because all we're doing right now is talking about it. But what will really put teeth to it is to include this into transportation APF. And Brian, I mean, you and I have been working on it. I mean, you have a lot more than I. Where is it right now? Where does it stand? Has it already gone to the council?
It hasn't gone to the council. I think there's a draft, like internal draft that I think we're ready to share with, well, we're ready to share with the committee, but I would have to defer to DPW on that. But we're working on a draft anyway that should be ready soon for the committee to look at and recommend.
So on that, our organization asked to see the report. And we were told it's already gone to legislation for legislative language. And we said, well, wait a minute, we don't wanna see the bill, we wanna see the report. And we can't try it out. We've talked to Mr. Braun multiple times, we're now at this point going over his head to try to get hold of that thing. We're 10 minutes away from calling Mr. Benton and asking him to see it. So if it's somewhere in the county sausage machine, and it ought to be available to Anthony and people on the committee and friends of Anthony who have an interest in these things.
Which report is that again?
Anthony Brent,
I don't know if there's a final report, but there is a draft, some stage of draft.
we were told it's gone in for legislative language, which sounds like there's a final report.
Richard
Yeah, that's-
asking that
That's new to me, because the last I knew that it was in draft and it had not gone to the committee yet. So, and I haven't seen the draft, because the last meeting we had, the question came up when it comes to things like pedestrians or bikes. is that going to be a weighted effort when it comes to calculating trips and loads on roads and intersections? And during the meeting, the response was, well, I'm not sure, but we'll work on it. And my response was, it better, because it needs to be, and I use the term punitive, which is probably not the correct term, but there needs to be a negative assessment based on how pedestrian and bike traffic is calculated. And right now it's not, it's only vehicular traffic. So there needs to be other metrics in there that affect that during the APF process.
So in answer to your question, Richard, this is the transportation, the paper on transportation, adequate public facilities, APF.
Okay.
And there's been a committee working on it for 4 years prior to COVID, on pause for a while, leadership change, things happened. It got jump-started, Anthony, 6-8 months ago? Some cattle prod got inserted, somebody woke up and said, let's do the damn thing. So it's either a draft is being prepared, or somebody's trying to turn it into a county council bill. And we've gotten both of those stories, and it's really important to our work.
Adequate public facility.
Process, but
I know, I got to the rest of it. Yes, sir.
I asked him, she's.
Yeah.
Okay, Kate, this is Hamilton. Is it appropriate to take a couple comments before we wrap up?
We're not even done.
We're not,
No, so
we have one more report and then we'll come back to you, Hamilton.
Okay, yeah, I had something on the bicycling and other things that we've been talking about, so I'll wait till we get done this next slide.
So we'll hear from Richard and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, Hamilton, this is Rich Erickson. Our area is up next.
So to jump right into it, before we talk about the concerns and issues, do you all mind describing a little bit about the area for people who don't regularly visit, any destinations, any types of leisure activities that people would attend?
Sure, in the Holland Point area, of course, Hamilton is starting, and Stuart, his father has the Harrington Harbor South Resort, and just to the south of us into Calvert, the Chesapeake Beach Resort. 261 State Highway runs through our area. One way in, one way out. There's just one highway. And it has many, if not all, the exact same issues that we've been talking about. The highway is not, it's not wide enough. There is no shoulder. It is road, open ditch, very dangerous. The pedestrian, the citizens of Holland Point and Rosehaven have to utilize that road for going to work, for going to the groceries, for walking the dogs and riding their bikes and taking a walk, jogging, and so on. And so the width of the road is an issue. Flooding is an issue, drainage, I should say flooding, we all have, but how do we get the drainage to work so that we're not water bound? And we all had the same issues with bicycle safety as well as bicycle use. We've got tremendous amount of people coming through on groups of bikes. We have local people, local citizens like myself that ride bikes, walk the dogs, or walk along the roads. Very unsafe. And so our recommendations are to consider what solutions for the drainage could be engineered. Open ditch drainage gets filled in within a month. We got people coming out with backhoes and digging out the open ditches which don't really help because again, it fills right back up. It's a constant deal. So our recommendation is to engineer some sort of underground sewer system, drainage system, that doesn't allow for the storm runoff to go directly into the bay, because we're right on the bay. And there are 4 different outfalls through our community that has water directly going into Chesapeake Bay. We've got to come up with a solution that does not contribute to the pollution of the bay, but also helps drain the water out somewhere. Again, not the engineer, but open drainage and allowing water to drain straight into the bays is not the answer. I'm sure we can come up with a solution. I do know that the state is doing a feasibility study on 261. Not sure off the top of my head when that feasibility study will be complete. And all the aspects that that feasibility study would look at, looking at speed as well as the width and safety. We also, as a community, we're looking into applying for grants for study on water drainage in the area through Chesapeake Bay Foundation, I believe, through some other state organization. With the resort and with the influx of citizens or tourism, with other folks coming to visit, we want to foster and welcome the vitality of this area and the beauty of this area. But we want an infrastructure that will help people that live here live safely and enjoy this beautiful area of the state that we have. Hamilton, I guess I'll hand it off to you if you have anything else to add.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll just real quickly. First, I want to say I'm very glad the pizza showed up because I was worried about that. I called Vaselli's earlier and to make sure they were going to be there, so I'm glad that happened. Yeah, and also I wanted to thank Kate for bringing the drinks and the utensils and things. So then on to the things of the evening. Couple overall comments really with regard to the entire district region. One would be increased bicycle signage on the roads and striping and markings on the existing roads. It's something we can do that is less expensive and can be done quickly to help with that. It is dangerous. The traffic is moving very quickly, and anything we can do to alert the drivers that aren't from around or wherever, that just more signage, more striping, I think will help quite a bit, and it's inexpensive. Enforce the speed limits, lots of speeding going on. Look at traffic calming if possible and reasonable on certain roads. Look at the roads and the speed limits. I think there's some roads that could probably have their speed limits reduced without hurting traffic flow, but also, for the speeders, kind of give them a little bit more of a bar to jump through. In essence, there's a lot of extra, circles. We heard a bit about circles. I agree with the circles. I would recommend something on Route 2 and Harwood Road, and then something at 258 and Route 4. And I know they're both out of our region, but I think they're important to the region because it affects our region as well. I would not recommend adding lanes to any roads. I don't think that's the answer. I think that sums it up from what I was thinking. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Hamilton.
So to kind of wrap up tonight's discussion, one other thing we wanted to touch base on, and there's a lot to it, Brian, feel free to jump in a second. The scenic and historic roads, in the county code, I think there's over 150 roads designated as a scenic or historic road in the county. And essentially what that means is there's different regulations for development along these roadways. If you guys are interested in that, I'll look into that a little more. I think Brian can probably give a little more information if you guys want. Is there anything else I should mention about that.
No, just that it's an issue that probably needs to be looked at. I think they had a commission that was active and hasn't been active in a while. So I think the county in general is just trying to pay more attention and focus back to it. So, yeah, probably more you said, but that's a whole meeting, right?
So I know, in my office, what I do a lot actually is that when there's a new development in the county that is anywhere close to a scenic byway or state road, I write a review to make sure that integrity is maintained. So, anything that's going in the area, they have to make sure that it doesn't disrupt the integrity of the scenic byway or,
The only thing I'll say about that
scenic.
is that in the past in South County, it's been used as an excuse to not provide a shoulder like. Because it's a scenic and historic road.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
What,
So,
if you're designated as a scenic road, what, does that have limits?
Yeah.
no, it's a whole thing to get into, but,
You don't want to go there.
well, I would love to get in there.
We don't have time to.
I mean, from one end of the county, you got, say, Fairhaven Road, Leach Road, then you got Owensville Sudley.
Yeah. See, the map is full of scenic and historic roads.
Of our roads are scenic.
But look, again, it kind of worked the opposite way that it was intended, I think, is because it was trying to say that you can't develop here and
But
you
then
need
they
to keep
did.
it the way, but then they developed, they used the rule of you can't make changes to the road. They were thinking you can't add turn lanes and all this stuff that would encourage development. But some of the stuff happened anyway, and they said, well, we can't make any improvements to the road, so because of the rule. So I think it was some unintended consequences, and that's why they need to look at it again, restart the committee, try to repair the areas that are damaged or, and that kind of preserve. What does the county want to preserve? What does a scenic historic road look like? What does it include? What does it not include, and that kind of thing.
And I'll note that there's recommendations in Plan 24, the general plan that kind of point to that, of some of these issues and the need to get in and refine this program, to give it more teeth where it needs it, give more flexibility where it needs it for things like bike pedestrian infrastructure. So that's already kind of covered in the general development plan as a topic.
But if you label a road as a scenic and beautiful road, who are you telling that to? Are you encouraging people from Bowie to come down and ride a bicycle on a scenic and bucolic road? Or what exactly?
There are different programs and designations at the county. There's the scenic and historic, and there's scenic and historic rural roads. And the state has its scenic byways, and I think there's a federal program for that too, right? So at the state and federal, there is some promotion. Also, you see like the roots and tides signs, right?
Teeny tiny signs.
That's good. That goes to the state and federal, and promoting tourism. The county is more of this trying to protect the integrity, the character, the look and feel of that.
And it depends on what the road is, because some roads are historic just because of the road itself is an old, there's a reason for it. There's some that the alignment is historic. There's some that are scenic for the land use around it. So it depends on the road too, of what is trying to be protected. And that's cultural resources, the whole group that does that.
So it has nothing to do with people looking.
Red line.
No, but it does. Unintended
Yeah, it
consequences.
is unintended, well, I think somewhere along the line, there was like, ad from,
Rose Haven.
because people in southern Anne Arundel complained that we weren't getting enough tourism promotion, and then they did an ad that happened to feature a bike. And the fact that we were great for biking, and then it kind of blew out of control because now everybody has.
So we need to wrap this up because we need to have open comment. I'll take whatever you have to add, Kathy, and then we'll
Yeah, just a
stop.
quick comment that I forgot, and I thought it was kind of a cool idea, but it's transportation, but it's on the water. And there was an idea to have some type of water taxi or something that goes from Galesville to Annapolis, and Annapolis back to Galesville, and people could put their bikes on that, and then they could go and ride bikes there and go back. And then also kayak connectivity. There are some places that were identified where if you just made a few changes, some of the dead ends in the creeks could take you much longer and cut down the Tracy's Landing or something. So I just wanted to mention that, because we hadn't talked about transportation on the water.
Thank you. We just gotta increase the NARS budget, so that people can get dumped in the water on the kayak.
So I do see Tanya Osmond, she works with the Office of Transportation, her hand is raised online, so Tanya, if you want to say a word or two.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say, I am the senior planner in the Office of Transportation, working with Brian on bicycle and pedestrian planning. And this has been a great conversation. I've been listening to it all the time. I mean, the whole time. And I did want to put some emphasis on the scenic and historic roads discussion, as well as the APF. I think both of those need a major overhaul in the code. I think, you know, both are very important, but the current code is very limiting on what you can do in terms of safety on scenic and historic roads. There's no safety analysis that goes into the APF analysis. So I appreciate everybody's insight on that, and I hope that you will make a recommendation for rehaul of that. And also, I want to stress that adequacy of public facilities, as you may or may not know, is very developer dependent. So it's a code requirement that is for developers only. So when you're lobbying for new legislation and rules, keep that in mind, that, you know, this is a group that you need to address. And that's it. I just wanted to let you know that I've been listening and hearing everything, and I'm really excited about all the recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Do we have anybody online who wants to speak?
We don't have any attendees online.
I have a message from Anthony that he texted in. May I add it here? It goes back to the overpass, pedestrian overpass at the schools. He said, make sure that becomes a committee recommendation if we agree with it. That his frustration with the Plan 2040 process was that they mentioned a lot of things that the staff did not include in the report. And I know that won't happen here, but just to emphasize that it needs to be included in the report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
So I think Melanie is here to speak. Is there anybody else who was going to speak this evening?
I'm just a Galesville resident and Cassie's my neighbor. I'm Nancy Gunn. My concerns were slowing down the traffic on Galesville Road. I don't know whether it's Galesville and becomes Main Street. I don't know whether that is an entire state road or part of that is county road. As to whether we could get some kind of traffic calming in there. Just because people just race up and down there. And the other thing was, if the county wants to make a lot of money, they should put a speed camera at Galesville, you know, at the heights, heading north and south. It's not just entering on the yellow and then it turns red. It's red and the car will go through and then another car will go through. So, that was really all that I wanted to say. But it was very interesting and informative to be here tonight.
Thank you. Melanie? Would you introduce yourself?
I'm Melanie Margaret Davis, for those who don't know me. In my day job, I'm an architect at a small firm downtown that focuses very much on resilience and sustainability. So before I joined the Planning Advisory Board, I was on Plan 2040. So I thank you for your time. I know exactly what you're putting in, and thank you for the staff for being here so long. And as we embark on budget season, to Kate's point, please, you know, encourage everybody, you guys and everybody to come and attend the budget town hall and make a difference. He really does this. So about what we want and our priorities. Some just pinpoints on some of the things that were said about safety and riding bicycles, and I am absolutely you know, supportive and you know, you guys are really on target with that. I think some of the things that I think about from a design perspective as an architect and such is making the streetscape more welcoming. And, you know, so street trees, more landscaping, it breaks it up, it cools it down. From a resiliency standpoint, I've been very concerned about the expansion. I am on the Mayo Peninsula. I'm staring at the map of the preliminary design, for 214. We, on the Mayo Peninsula, spoke up very loudly, and the county heard about our safety issues down there and not having, the ability, not for the emergency vehicles not to be able to get on the peninsula if when something happened, and if something happens on 214, the power pole goes down and the entire peninsula is out of power for how long, and then we've got kids who can't get to school because, there's a one way in, one way out. The resolution that the state has come up with triples the asphalt, on the peninsula, and that gives me concern from a resiliency standpoint. Here we are, everybody, we several times people mentioned flooding, right? So here we are, going to exacerbate a situation that, we're already having a real struggle with trying to, deal with this excessive water and these extreme weather events. So, to me, it's about right sizing, the designs and really trying to do something that I have to do in, my business with getting a variance for properties. It's the minimum necessary to afford relief. I resent automobiles. I resent that they've for decades taken over our planning process, and we design for automobiles. And it is we have to be the ones to pivot and stop that. So now is the time to convey that to the state, and to the county, that they can save some money here on 214, just to kind of look at it. For example, they have very supportive of multimodal, but they have a 10-foot wide multimodal lane. That's as wide for a car. We don't need 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out, plus 2 bike lanes and a 10-foot one. I just think that's excessive. We could save a lot of money. If you look at the stormwater management that they've got proposed for that, it's extensive because of exactly what it is. So I just say that to keep in mind, and I think Hamilton made a good comment. He said, for some roads, yes, we need more lanes on 214. I'm not gonna say that, but obviously for some lanes, it's more about striping them and being more organized. And at the state level, for those at the state that are listening, it's redesigning, it's reevaluating our design criteria for streets, to be more flexible and urban. So I think that's pretty much it. I just thank you again. It's very important. When we were on Plan 340 and putting the time in there, everybody wanted to dig into this detail that you guys are into now. So it's really great to see it happening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to kind of wrap up very briefly, we've heard a lot of good things tonight. We've heard the word safety a handful of times, sidewalk connectivity, all very good. But one thing that's, I think, even better is we can, in a way, if you think about this whole conversation tonight, we've connected transportation to every topic we've discussed so far. We mentioned connection to parks. We've talked about flooding, environmental concerns. We talked about, the importance of providing these facilities in neighborhoods, aka housing. All this kind of good stuff has really come, I think, to fruition tonight. And I think it's going to help carry over into our March meeting, where we can really continue this connection of all the silos, right? So one thing to keep in mind is to just continue that conversation in your head with your colleagues, with your neighbors, with your community members, and see what the whole picture is for your community as well as Region 9. Our next meeting is going to be on Thursday, March 7th, 5:30, 8:30, same time as always. If you notice, the location has changed from when I've seen this out, I'm not sure when. We are now at the Galesville Memorial Hall. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So we will be meeting there in Galesville. And to kind of connect to what I just said a second ago, the vision statement. I think we've gone through 4 meetings of 4 different topics, and I think each of us probably have an idea of your vision for the future. And one thing that we're going to be talking about is a vision statement for the Region 9 draft plan. I'm going to send I'm going to send out an email to you guys, hopefully tomorrow, but definitely next week. A couple examples of vision statements. I would recommend looking at the Region 7 plan. I'll probably send the Region 2 plan, and Region 4 as well, just to kind of get an idea of what to expect the vision statement to kind of look like. And what we're gonna ask of you, you don't have to, but if you'd like to, we highly encourage it, to send us an email back with your draft vision statement. What do you think the vision statement for Region 9 should be? And we'd like to kind of take all of them together, present everything to you guys in some way. We're still kind of working this out, but then also figure out how to put it all in one. And a vision statement is not a page, it's not a book, it's a paragraph, right? And we'll, like I said, we're sending an example, but just start thinking about the different bullet points that really matter to you.
So Eric, can I make a comment on that? When we did, and Melanie, if you're still here, you will remember this not fondly. We spent hours wordsmithing the 2040 vision statement in a very unproductive manner. So I would suggest that you not try to draft a vision statement, but that you send us bullet points of the elements that you think should be in. And don't get too attached to the language that you use. Because half of what we did was spend time pissing over which word was the right word and who owned which one. It was really unproductive. And if you have key elements that describe what the future for this part of the county look like, should be, that's what we need. Then we can craft something that reflects all of our thinking without getting into the who owns the language.
Did you want that by next
You
meeting?
know, I'll send you know, kind of deadlines and stuff, but like, part of the next meeting, we'll discuss the vision statement. So just come with ideas at least. That's absolutely a good point, Kate. Is wordsmithing, it's your guys' ideas, it's staff's responsibility to work on something to produce a paragraph that reflects what you are talking about, right? And we're gonna use probably different technologies like SurveyMonkey. We'll probably send out some SurveyMonkeys stuff to you guys. SurveyMonkey, for those who don't know, is what we're using currently for our questionnaires. We've, through our experience, have realized that works very well with committees. And we're gonna be using that come the zoning discussions as well to really help make these conversations more efficient and more productive during our 2.5, 3 hour timeframes. So,
And having getting input from beyond this group will also do the results of the community input on vision elements, kind of same question then, what elements would they want to see in it, and Josie ratings and comments on them, so that inform.
And we'll have the results of the environmental survey for the next meeting, right?
I'm good, so we have it written. Yeah, we're.
That one closed already.
Yeah, we're finalizing, if either it is finalized, we're finalizing the summary of everything. Just really quickly, April 11th, we'll likely have a drop-in session talking about transportation and transportation recommendations. The date and time and location are still up in the air. We'll let you know as soon as we lock something down. And then, as mentioned earlier, the recommendation for the economy and housing survey questionnaire is online. Other than that, that's all.
And it expires on February 20th, right?
Yeah. February 20th.
Pardon me, this moment, someone said, make sure to read Anthony's comment in the chat.
So when he was talking, it looked like maybe we've been hacked, but it looks like it was Chinese characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it popped up, it's hard to read.
But he spoke after you. Maybe
And
something.
then wrote back after he spoke, he said, he put more in the chat.
Okay.
All I have here, I can show, because I can't show them mine.
Now, Anthony, if you're on the line, speak up and tell us what you said.
Sorry about that. This has been a very chaotic evening. Yeah, so one of the big problems that I see that we have, and this has been brought up before in multiple other discussions over the years, is actually sidewalks connecting the Mayo Peninsula to Central Elementary, Central High, and Central Middle. It's, it's literally maybe a mile's worth, and there are no sidewalks on one of the most dangerous sections of 214 that, is crazy. So, yeah, anyways, this is one of those things, just like the overpass, the pedestrian overpass to the schools themselves. I fully support and agree with Matt. I want this county council to tell us no. There are some things that we need to make a stand on to actually be put in writing to make the county council say no. And so, Brian, I understand when you talk about the statistics and the modeling, how people will try to, shortcut it and not take that climb. But sometimes you just need to ignore the statistics and do the things that I think are right. And in this case, I think putting that pedestrian overpass and putting a sidewalk to the Mayo Peninsula are two fundamental big pluses that we can do. That's it.
Thanks,
I
Anthony.
have one last request. I love the slides and they're not numbered. And so when they pop out of my printer and fall on the floor, I can't figure out what the hell order it is. So if next slide said, we could just number the slides, please.
Well, I think we do think we have them numbered, but the pictures are covering them, so we will fix that.
There's a number on the last slide.
Yeah.
The last slide says 29.
Okay.
There's none of the others.
And I have another request, that we manage our time, because we're heavy in one area and then we rush through the other areas. We need a balanced presentation.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
But at least you got to talk a little.
I had a question, maybe the architect or Karen can answer. Things that we ask for, or wish for, or wonder about. I know there are probably standards that things have to be built to. Whether, I don't know, which standards they follow, is it a federal standard, state standard, county standard? Or can county just build something and say the health standard? How does, I mean.
You know what you're talking about? No,
There's a sidewalk to a overpass,
So there's-
culvert, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so there's an ASHTO green book that sets like on the federal level, you have to meet all these requirements. So like you can't build a 1 foot sidewalk, or there's ADA, I mean, there's all these different regulations actually that go into it. And then so out of those regulations, then the county has their own standard book, the state has their own standard book. They're relatively similar, but they're a little bit different. And so the county builds to their standard book and the state builds to their standard book. They're not significantly different. Maybe the curb height is different from a state road and a county road. Sidewall widths are the same, but maybe there's just minor differences, but generally you have to build to the overall same standards. And then you can always get a waiver for certain things if there's certain things you're working around. That's why engineers have standards, because you don't all just build cookie cutter. There's wetlands or, an old house or whatever you're trying to save and work around. Sometimes you'll narrow lanes or whatever you're doing, you make adjustments on a case by case basis as well. Nothing you talked about is not achievable. That's all it's here, just takes money.
And so I'll have to, go along with what you're saying regarding designations or regulations or standards or so on. And if there is a quote unquote designation or regulation that needs to be reviewed, then we should suggest we review them if they're old or out of date, or not in line with the solution that would make something else better. We can't say, oh, there's a regulation or a designation. We can't do that. Oh, let's review and change
I would say that there are more regulations pertaining to everything.
I agree.
Than antiquated regulations.
So let's look at maybe,
I mean, 'cause they have, handicap
I don't even
standards,
know about getting
dog
all
standards, you have,
let's
whatever.
modify it so that it can loosen them up.
You just can't build you can't throw a path in the woods without probably have some kind of standards.
Right. And I wouldn't suggest anything outside of the standards, but if a regulation or designation or something is a hurdle, then let's look at how to remove the hurdle, not get around it or not just get a waiver. That hurdle may be too restrictive.
So Eric, you have summary. Did you want to talk about that briefly?
Oh, yeah, so, what I sent out earlier today to you guys, the recommendation.
Yes.
Yeah, so, what I sent out to you guys earlier today, along with tonight's presentation, and for everybody else online, presentation will be online, hopefully tomorrow, early next week. But the recommendation list I sent you guys is all the potential draft strategy recommendations we've heard through this point, or before this meeting. There obviously will be more to come, because tonight was a whole good conversation that, we'll add the transportation aspects to. This, what we sent out today is gonna be a good starting point to help connect everything together come March. So I would highly recommend reviewing it, taking a look over, and these are also the recommendations that the members of the public have been able to review, provide comment on as well, or will be able to review and provide comment on if they haven't done so already.
Quick question on that. Several of these refer to regions 2, 4, and 7, as if they had come out from the previous round. Are you certain that these are things that are coming out of our work as well?
Yeah, I'll have to double check why 2, 4, and 7 was listed, maybe that was a mistake, because we're, 2, 4, and 7, we're draining our heads with council going on right now, so maybe it's just an error on our end, I'll take a look now.
I do think if you look at the Region 7 plan, there's a lot there that it's like a cut and paste because they're facing some of the same issues that we are. So it's possible that that's what happened, but I think it's quite useful to spend some time looking at a completed plan.
Yeah.
At least in draft form, because it's not been approved yet, to see how they are thinking about some of the very same issues that affect us here.
And just a reminder, you're emailing those to us or
It came this afternoon.
the reason plans?
No, the region plans you'll find on the planning hub on the county website.
Alright, good.
So
No, I saw it.
is there anything else for the good of the order before we bring the meeting to a close? Yes, sir.
So I just want to thank everybody. I really enjoyed this meeting as well. This is, my first time, participating in this meeting. It was very informative. Everybody had a lot of great things to say, input to, put out there for the betterment of all you guys' communities. One of the things about me is that I spent about 9 years in transit before state highway. And, I worked for all of the big Baltimore, Ramada, and also New York. And one of the things that would help as far as transportation, I love what you said about providing transportation out of those communities. Every transportation company that I work for, their model is the same. It has to be safe, efficient, and reliable. And you gotta be able to get people out of these communities and assist them in connecting to those larger bus routes. So I think a solution would be more rapid bus routes out of these communities to connect to the larger bus lines, folks can get to wherever they need to go. One of the things that Baltimore did, MTA did before I left, is that they created Baltimore Link, which before the transit systems, the lines would go from one part of the city and all the way across the other side. And that wasn't not effective because as, rush hour and stuff, the buses fall behind and those long routes would just, they would just bottleneck. So they created Baltimore Link, so they have shorter bus routes connecting to longer lines. And that helped with, efficiency. So if you guys can come up with, you need buses and you need people to operate them, but having more rapid lines to connect to other systems would probably help out in these communities. I know in my community, I live in White Marsh, and I live right off of 43, which there's no route that can take me to the parking lot to get me into the city. I'm sure there's a lot of communities like that as well down here that there's no line to at least get me to a line to get me to where I need to go. So I think that would probably be the best solution as far as your transit.
But it seems like for a while we did have bus service in South Carolina, only lasted like a year.
It was a trial, like it was a volunteer
It was the
trial.
community alliance.
Yeah, there was a loop that was done for a while,
Not very long.
but not very long.
Okay, yeah.
It didn't get any rocket ship, and so that's when we went to the Colorado model.
Do we have to protest because the people who had funded the bus stops, they did advertising and it was a picture of a little woman putting a knife in somebody, like how mommy killed the kid or something like that. No, you gotta take that off. It would turn out to be a big deal. County
And I'll just say thanks to Tavon for coming because, I asked other people from the state to come and they did not come. So he didn't hesitate. to come.
Yeah, we appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. And thank you all for a really good conversation tonight.
We need a motion.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'll stop there with the motion.
Matt, Carla, second.
Seconds.
We are adjourned, folks. We'll see you in a month or at the budget meeting.